Plotted this out to the east, so to give folks in like the Mooresville area a little heads up, I'll put it on the leading edge right here. So there you go. Pumpkin Center 448, Sherrills Ford 454, Westport around 504, Mooresville 511, and then heading towards Rowan County around 530 or so. And again, I put a track on the whole line, so if you're in Charlotte South, this is an idea when the storms will get there. And here's a little wider view. So what's happened with this storm? Your base severe thunderstorm warning is for 1-inch diameter hail and 58-mile-an-hour winds. Most of these today have been what we call considerable, which means they have 70-mile-per-hour winds or larger hail. This is all about wind today, by the way, not the hail. This most recent warning just got that destructive tag, 80-mile-per-hour winds. Now, that's crucial because it'll set phones off. And so a lot of folks, those phones will be going off just like for a tornado warning in these areas because of the significance of that wind. And again, you need to treat it just like a tornado warning. Wind has been by far our biggest issue. It will continue to be that way. If there's one piece of good news here is once this line moves through, the worst of the weather is over. But we showed you this earlier today, 45% chance of damaging winds. That's a really high percentage. That means anywhere in that purple area within 25 miles of any point on that map, there's a chance of wind damage. So that's pretty significant. Now the line continues to push east, so Futurecast shows it moving through the Charlotte area between 5 and 7. I think probably 6 o'clock is going to be the time frame. By 8 o'clock it pushes east, so this is the good news. It's in and out fairly quickly. And so if you could just ride this out, stay inside. If kids have practice, if there was a concert or something going on in that time frame, don't go outside. Wait it out. Stay inside to this pass. Trust me, this is not a regular summer storm. This is even extreme by spring standards, let alone in August. 5 to 7 p.m., that's the time frame for us. 7 to 9 as it pushes off to the east. So it will be into the evening hours out towards Rockingham. Now, once the front moves through, things will dry out. Dew points will go back in the 60s, but later this week, we'll see those dew points shoot back up into the 70s. Here's a quick look at your Guy Roofing 7-day forecast. Calmer weather ahead, but tonight through about 8 p.m., please everybody stay weather aware. Until that line gets to you and past, you are not in the clear from severe weather.
Brad, thanks so much. Simone Biles making a triumphant return to the gymnastics stage. The most decorated gymnast of all time, winning her first competition since that stunning withdrawal from the Tokyo Olympics.
Well, a lot of families getting ready for the start of school. And according to Deloitte, back-to-school shopping is the second most expensive time of the year for families, trailing just behind the winter holidays.
And that's on top of the National Retail Federation predicting this year's back-to-school shopping season will be the most expensive ever. Wake Up Charlotte's Sarah French breaks down some apps and some websites to help you save, so you're not left asking, where's the money?
Here are some of the top websites and apps that will help you save money on back-to-school shopping. We spoke with Andrea Warrock, a money-saving expert, to get her top tips. Tip number 1. If you want to compare prices, use websites like Flip or Price Blink, as well as apps like Shop Savvy.
This way you can see who has what for the cheapest price on your list, and then you can plan your shopping trip accordingly. I also love Sidekick from couponcabin.com, and this tool will alert you if there's a coupon available for a site you're shopping at.
Tip number 2. If you have an athlete in your house, go for gently used sporting goods with sites and apps like Swap Me Sports or Sideline Swap. And tip number 3, shop for gently used clothing items as well. Andrea recommends sites like Swoondle Society.
This is a site where you could trade in kids' clothing. You get credit to get like new clothing. You do pay a small trade fee or join a membership, but great outlet for saving a lot on clothing.
Poshmark is another website or app where you can find brand names for your kids at a discount. For WCNC Charlotte, I'm Sarah French.
New details this morning on the violent criminal history of missing Alicia Watts' boyfriend. Watts is last seen with James Dunmore here in Charlotte back on July 16th. And now, documents obtained by our news partners WRAL show Dunmore had abduction and assault convictions in Virginia. Wake Up Charlotte's Richard Devane now live for us this morning. Richard, another candlelight vigil taking place tonight as the search now enters its third week.
Yeah, absolutely correct, Ben. That will be held tonight in Moore County. Locally here, you can understand how family and friends of that missing woman are more concerned after these new revelations about the person that she was dating.
New details about the man Alicia Watts was dating and
Next.
And severe thunderstorm warnings continue to be issued. New one just issued for a big chunk of our area, Catawba, Iredell, Lincoln, and Rowan County. If you're in the path of this storm, I want you to seek shelter just like it's a tornado warning. We've got 80-mile-per-hour winds within this storm. I'm going to quickly show it to you here. That storm is producing a lot of damage in parts of Catawba County. This is a live view. I believe it's from the Chevy Storm Tracker. That's the shelf cloud. That shelf cloud is the leading edge of very strong winds. Take these storms very seriously as they are continuing to produce widespread damage in parts of our area. Coming up, we'll have another update on this track as it heads towards Lake Norman.
Well, a lot of families getting ready for the start of school. And according to Deloitte, back to school shopping is the second most expensive time of the year for families, trailing just behind the winter holidays.
And that's on top of the National Retail Federation predicting this year's back to school shopping season will be the most expensive ever. Wake Up Charlotte's Sarah French breaks down some apps and some websites to help you save, so you're not left asking, where's the money?
Here are some of the top websites and apps that will help you save money on back to school shopping. We spoke with Andrea Warrock, a money-saving expert, to get her top tips. Tip number 1. If you want to compare prices, use websites like Flip or Price Blink, as well as apps like Shop Savvy.
This way you can see who has what for the cheapest price on your list, and then you can plan your shopping trip accordingly. I also love Sidekick from couponcabin.com, and this tool will alert you if there's a coupon available for a site you're shopping at.
Tip number 2. If you have an athlete in your house, go for gently used sporting goods with sites and apps like Swap Me Sports or Sideline Swap. And tip number 3, shop for gently used clothing items as well. Andrea recommends sites like Swoondle Society.
This is a site where you could trade in kids' clothing. You get credit to get like new clothing. You do pay a small trade fee or join a membership, but great outlet for saving a lot on clothing.
Poshmark is another website or app where you can find brand names for your kids at a discount. For WCNC Charlotte, I'm Sarah French.
New details this morning on the violent criminal history of missing Alicia Watts' boyfriend. Watts is last seen with James Dunmore here in Charlotte back on July 16th. And now, documents obtained by our news partners WRAL show Dunmore had abduction and assault convictions in Virginia. Wake Up Charlotte's Richard Devane now live for us this morning. Richard, another candlelight vigil taking place tonight as the search now enters its third week.
Yeah, absolutely correct, Ben. That will be held tonight in Moore County. Locally here, you can understand how family and friends of that missing woman are more concerned after these new revelations about the person that she was dating.
new details about the man Alicia Watts was dating and last seen with before she went missing more than 2 weeks ago. According to her family and friends, Watts hasn't been seen or heard from since July 16th, when she was last seen with James Dunmore as they left in her black Mercedes SUV heading to a comedy show. Dunmore later found alone in that SUV outside a DMV office in Anson County. Police say he was unresponsive, but little more. Now WCNC has learned that Dunmore has a violent criminal history, including convictions for abduction, stalking, and assault and battery. The abduction charge from 2003 carries a maximum prison sentence of 5 years. Obviously, these new revelations add even more urgency for Alicia's family and friends.
Just the charges alone already let you know that now we're dealing with a criminal.
And the family says they will continue to hold out hope that somehow Alicia can be found and brought home safe. Of course, we'll keep you posted both here and online. Right now, we are in East Charlotte. Richard Devane for Wake Up Charlotte.
With your help, WCNC Charlotte is making a difference in our community. Beautiful day, so many people helping. This is incredible.
Let's spread that love tonight.
Here is a $5,000 check that you guys can use to further the mission.
There is nothing on earth like the feeling of giving back with your hands.
$5,000 to you and Block Love Charlotte for what you guys do.
If you'd like to make a difference, go to WCNC.com/make-a-difference now.
Wake Up Charlotte's Drew Petrimo has the latest from Capitol Hill.
Good morning, Ben and Sarah. Trump's arraignment is set for 4 p.m. at a federal courthouse here in D.C. Law enforcement is promising tight security as the former president returns to the nation's capital. Barriers surround a courthouse in Washington, D.C., where former President Trump is set to be arraigned today in front of a federal judge. He's facing 4 felony counts for what prosecutors say were Trump's efforts to remain in power even after he lost the 2020 election to Joe Biden. Despite Trump's claims that the prosecution is a political hit, his former Vice President Mike Pence says Trump did pressure him to overturn the election.
And on that day, President Trump asked me to put him over the Constitution, but I chose the Constitution, and I always will.
After Pence refused, prosecutors say Trump used an angry mob assembled at the Capitol on January 6 to pressure Pence more directly. The indictment says Trump
wins and bringing the threat of a tornado right into our area. Thanks for joining us here for the news at 5. I'm Colin Mayfield.
And I'm Vanessa Rufus. Right now, we are keeping our eye on a number of tornado and thunderstorm watches for counties across our area. Right now, those watches are in place in areas north of Mecklenburg County, but we can tell you the entire Charlotte area is under a severe thunderstorm warning. Taking you out live to looks across the Queen City, including you see on the left, Uptown view cam showing those dark skies. And then we also have here I-77 just outside of Uptown, where we have some backups growing after a crash that's been reported. We have more details on that accident coming up in just a moment.
Yeah, and the rough weather that's coming here also creating some tough times at Charlotte Douglas. Even the FAA saying they're rerouting aircraft around these storms that are on the East Coast. According to FlightAware, at this hour, we're seeing at least 427 delays, more than 80 canceled flights. Of course, be sure to check your flight status before you leave for the airport if you do have a flight tonight. The FAA, like I said, rerouting those planes, and that will happen here in Charlotte as well, along with Atlanta, NYC, Philly, and D.C. Let's get over to meteorologist Brad Panovich, who's watching this right now. Brad?
Yeah, we've got a tornado warning to pass along for you. This is heading right towards Mooresville. This is a likely confirmed tornado on the ground near Dooley, near Sherrills Ford. Now, let me go in and show you what this looks like. Right there, there's a very strong couplet on the radar, an indication of strong rotation. This is heading along Highway 150, so this is heading towards the super target there on 150 as you go towards 150 and 77. I believe that's exit 36 as you're going north on I-77. This is heading towards Mooresville. So if you're in this area, get to that lowest level of your house, your interior room, away from the outside walls and windows. If you know somebody in that area, text them and call them right now. A lot of commuters on 77 right now. I need everybody who's on 77, if they are listening on an app or they know somebody else in the car watching or listening, get off the interstate right now. Get off, stay where you are until this line passes, because this storm has got a very strong couplet right there. It's on Lake Norman right now. Perth Road, there's Dooley, Normandy Drive right there, basically pushing east. So this is about to cross over I-77. Now again, this is a really strong couplet, but even if there wasn't a tornado in there, there's 80-mile-per-hour winds within that cell. So right there is the rotation. It's heading right towards 77. So just on the north side of Highway 150 there, that's exit 36 as you're going to the north. I'm pretty sure that's exit 36 right there. Very familiar with that area as you get off there. Very busy intersection. Brawley School Road's to the south. So this is north of there. Cornelius Road, Perth Road area, that's where the circulation is. And again, this is pushing off to the east. So I'm going to turn the lightning off. There's so much lightning in there, but you can see the track is that purple box. That's a tornado warning for central southern Iredell County. Eventually could move towards China Grove area. So let's put a track on the circulation. I have it moving east at around 40 miles per hour. Let me just update that. Looking at the track, I'm going to put it at 40 miles per hour moving in this direction. So this will give you a time of arrival. And again, remember, when you're watching this, some of you are watching on a stream, YouTube TV, Hulu, whatever service, there's a delay. Make sure you're being careful about the times here. So Shepherd's around 5:03, Mount Ula 512, Enochville around 518, Landis 522, China Grove 523, Rowan Mills, Mount Mitchell area around 530. And again, this is probably one of those situations where it was a quick spin up. It looked really significant there for a couple scans of the radar. Probably one of those things where it spun up and went down quickly. But my concern all along with this storm is the very strong winds it's been producing, because within that line, we've seen all the way back to Lincolnton, some areas have been seeing gusts up to 80 miles per hour. You can see some of these winds in here, 40, 50, 60 miles per hour. So this might have been a brief spin up in that big surge of wind, but you can see that circulation. It's still showing up there. I'm going to zoom in carefully. This is on Perth Road heading towards Judas Road. Again, Shepherds, this is the area it's heading your way, east of 77. It's probably crossing 77 right now, even though the radar shows it in that location. Remember, it takes about a minute for the radar to scan, so it's likely already east of that area. I want to look at the a different product here. I'm going to turn this off just for a second. Bear with me as I'm analyzing this, trying to see if I see any signs of debris. It's pretty far from the radar site, so it's going to be really hard to tell if there's any indication of debris there, because it's so far from the radar. The radar we're using is down in Greer, South Carolina. The closest radar is Mountain Island Lake, the terminal Doppler radar. That only has 2 products. It does not show us debris. So when we look at it, we can look strictly at the wind speeds right there. And that kind of yellow area in the area is kind of showing you where there's rotation. The broad rotation is right there. And again, that's where it's at currently. Let me track where it's pushing off to the east right there. So we'll put some areas on there. Mount Ula there, 512. I got that in about 11 minutes from right now. So again, this is a tornado warning for Iredell and parts of Rowan County. It's a very narrow corridor, but here's the deal. Even if you're in the severe thunderstorm warning, I want you to go ahead and treat this entire area like a tornado warning because of the damaging winds. I'm going to have to turn the lightning off. There's just so much lightning in this storm. Now, lightning of that amount in a short period of time is an indication of very strong updrafts. So that tells me this is a very intense storm. So lightning's dangerous in and of itself. You shouldn't be outside anywhere near the storm anyways. So we'll turn the lightning data off so we can focus on the leading edge of where that storm is. If I look carefully at the storm itself, it's producing probably several thousand lightning strikes in the last minute or so, and just a tremendous amount of wind. The wind velocities that we're seeing out of this whole line again, are like low-end EF0, EF1 tornadoes. So that's why we've been trying to emphasize throughout the evening and most of the afternoon that you need to treat these storms a little differently. That's why it's a day to stay weather aware. They're not normal summer storms. In fact, these aren't normal for spring, let alone late summer. Very odd setup to see this type of wind energy in the summer months. Anytime you combine this much wind energy with the summertime heat and humidity, that's a really bad combination. Typically we have an overabundance of heat and humidity and not a lot of wind energy. That's our typical pop-up storms in the afternoon. When you get both together, that's when you tend to get some really severe weather like we're seeing today. Now I know we've got KJ Jacobs is out there in our Chevy Storm Tracker. I know he was near the Hickory area at one point. I'm sure he's heading east as he pushes off towards the east. Probably going to be a tough storm to chase because of how fast it's moving. But again, this is crossing 77 now. It's over Mooresville. As I'm telling you this, the circulation, it's still showing up right there, just past, it looks like, what is that? Trying to Reinhardt Drive or Road, Flanders Drive. It's pushing east to the north side of Mooresville. So this is on Highway 150 as it goes around Mooresville, the north side of town. That's an area where we definitely have rotation on the radar still. So again, you may be watching from this area. Hopefully you're in your shelter location, watching on the app, or you're watching on social media. But if you have friends or family in this area, text or call them. Coworkers, folks you go to church with, make sure you let them know that this is a tornado warning. At the very least, we're seeing some damaging winds there. This is going to travel on the north side of town. So 150, as it loops around the north side of Mooresville, it's going to be heading north, basically traveling almost due east along 150 as it travels east into the north and northeast sections of Mooresville and Iredell County. And eventually this would pass into Rowan County shortly. So that's why you see the warning both up for Rowan County and parts of Iredell County. So I don't know if we have any cameras up in that area guys in the booth, I know there's one camera, I think at 30, it's probably not going to see much. This is going to be rain wrapped. That's the thing about a storm like this, you're not going to see a whole lot because of the amount of moisture in there. And again, this is going to be one of those situations where this thing spun up real quickly, probably produced a brief tornado and then dissipated, but then the winds kind of overtook it, and the strong winds are kind of winning the day here as they push out really strong. In fact, it looks like the rotation is weakened just a little bit, but I still see quite a bit right there. And just to show you what I'm looking at. So what I'm looking at here are the Doppler winds. There's about 27 mile per hour winds going away and 25 mile per hour winds coming towards the radar site. So combined, you've got 52 mile per hour gate to gate wind shear there. And again, there's the tornado warning popping up again. So it looks like this has still got rotation in it. So you see the warning, a new one now being issued just to the south. This is for Huntersville. So this is going to be a new tornado warning for the northern sections of Mecklenburg County into Cabarrus County. Now again, even outside of the rotation here, we're probably going to see damaging winds regardless. So a while ago we said, hey, seek shelter regardless of where you are, but we've got two separate tornado warnings, which honestly probably are going to help people seek shelter quicker than the severe thunderstorm warnings, which were severe themselves. But this is a new tornado warning, now includes northern parts of Mecklenburg County and the northwest section of Cabarrus County. So this is in the Huntersville area. This is crossing over Mountain Island Lake as I speak. Let me zoom in on the rotation. So this rotation is right around Mountain Island Lake, just south of the dam on Lake Norman. So Collins Ford up there, the country club's just north of there. So traveling south as you go on the Catawba River down towards Mountain Island Lake, that circulation is right there. Beatty's Ford Road there, North Charlotte. This is heading towards areas towards North Lake Mall, Huntersville area. So in Huntersville, Birkdale Village exit right there, and just south, and then towards the North Lake Mall area. And this eventually will continue to push northeast, or east, excuse me. This is going to move towards Highland Creek, Skybrook communities, and eventually probably get very close to the university area, and then the Speedway, Concord Mills area. That's kind of the track of that storm. So you can see the two separate tornado warnings. I'm actually going to turn off the light. The lightning has just been insane with this storm, which makes so many icons showing up there. So you see the two tornado warnings. One's for Mecklenburg and Cabarrus till 6 o'clock. The other one is for Rowan County until 5:30. So two separate tornado warnings in this area. And again, good luck trying to spot these. They're not going to happen. Stay inside. Get away from those outside walls and windows if you can. And remember, even outside of the tornado warning, there's 70 to 80 mile per hour winds in this whole line as it pushes east. So that's why we want you to seek shelter in the lowest level of your home, away from the outside walls and windows until this line gets through the area. There's a quick loop. And again, if you're down in Charlotte and maybe you haven't left work, if you're commute to northern Mecklenburg County or southern Iredell, don't do it right now. Stay put. Stay where you are. Wait till this line passes. This is going to be a rough line of storms. Again, the good news in all this is that it's moving, but it has got a lot of wind with it. So we're starting to see a lot of damage reports popping up in North Mecklenburg County. I'm going to start looking at some of the damage real quickly. I don't like seeing, now it's hard to tell traffic-wise, but the traffic is a stop, it pretty much stands still from 485 all the way to 40, which that's a normal commute, but that's also in the middle of two tornado warnings. So we might have debris on the road. We have people, the visibility can't be great, people pulling over, but we're getting a lot of traffic issues. Hopefully people got off the interstate. Remember, your car is not a safe place to be in a tornado. Do not pull under an overpass. That's a death trap. Do not do that. If you can, get off the interstate, go to the closest gas station, convenience store, go inside. That's your best chance. Rest stop, whatever. Last ditch scenario would be to pull over your car, put it in park, turn your hazards on, lower your head and get low in your car. Again, I know a lot of people in their car probably aren't watching this right now, but if you know people or you're maybe communicating with them, they're in the car and they're wondering what's going on, you can give them some advice. Remember, you can amplify this message. We know there's limited people probably watching on different venues, but you can amplify this message if you are to people that are in the path of this storm. So please help us out. Help your friends and your neighbors out. These storms have lots of wind in them. So let me show you, there's 2 circulations I'm keeping an eye on. Actually, it looks like 3. There's one right there. There's one right there. That's moving into the western section of Rowan County. Then we move down towards Huntersville, and there's another one right over Huntersville. So essentially, basically, right over Hunters Point, heading east towards downtown, basically Huntersville there, as you go east from Birkdale Village, going towards Huntersville. And then eventually this is going to push east, south, basically heading south of Northstone Country Club towards Skybrook. So that's the area where that's heading. We go north. This one's right near the east side of Mooresville, traveling towards China Grove, north of Enochville. And then another one kind of near Cleveland there in Rowan County. So a couple of little spin-ups here, and that's kind of what you see in these strong winds. You've heard us refer to this as a squiggly squall line. When you see these little nooks and crannies in the line, that's when you tend to see quick spin-up tornadoes. And with the amount of damaging winds in there on top of this, it's definitely problematic. So if you're in Charlotte watching and you've got friends or family north, you can let them know, but I don't want you to let your guard down here either in Charlotte, because this line extends all the way down to the south and it's moving into Mecklenburg County here shortly. So eventually we're going to see severe weather move into Mecklenburg County and York County and most of the metro, but it's going to be straight line winds, and it doesn't really matter if it's straight line or rotational. All of these storms can produce damage. So let me widen this out and show you the loop here as we continue to see the storms move in. Just checking with some of our spotters to see if I've got any confirmation of damage up in there. I am starting to see a lot of power outages popping up, which tells me. So I do think we have some video coming in from some of our viewers out there and our followers, some of the wind being produced from these storms. And again, wow, that's probably an indication of straight line winds that you're seeing right there, bringing down those trees. And again, we say this often, wind is wind, and that's the kind of damage I would expect to see more of. And by the way, that's all pushing into the entire area. But this area north of Charlotte has a little bit enhanced damage. So that whole tree just went down there. It looked like a pretty healthy tree there as well. Part of it was dead. You could see part of it was, so maybe part of it was already collapsed. But if you can safely send us a picture or video from your area, it could help people seek shelter downstream. And again, you can use the Near Me feature in our WCNC app. You can also watch us live, the stream, as we track the storms. So if you look to the north of Charlotte, one thing you notice is we've got this kind of bowing segment. It looks like that, and if you put an arrow through it, that's why it's called a bow. That's very strong push of wind. And sometimes at the apex of these bows, you see the little spin-up tornadoes, and that's probably what we're seeing along this line. I honestly probably would be very difficult to even indicate straight line wind damage from tornado damage in this setup now, as fast as these storms are pushing to the east. So the tornado warnings, if they do anything, they do help people seek shelter quicker. We were trying to emphasize how strong these storms were and how much damage they were causing, and we wanted you to treat them as if they were tornado warnings, because 80-mile-per-hour winds are going to cause damage similar to an EF0 tornado, or even borderline EF1 in some cases. Especially the trees and power lines and shingles and parts of roofs and eaves and stuff like that. And any loose items in your yard become flying debris. They become dangerous. Trampolines, grills, lawn furniture, hammocks, pots. Those things then can become dangerous on their own. Getting a lot of video in now, this from Twitter. I know or Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter. We're starting to see quite a bit of damage coming in, especially tree damage, it looks like. Power outages are the highest right now in the foothills, parts of Avery County, Caldwell, Burke, Catawba County, and now starting to move into Mecklenburg and Iredell County with the strong winds. So let's do an updated storm track on this, because the northern section's moving much quicker than the southern section. I'm going to put a storm track on the leading edge of the tornado warned storms. And again, if you're not in the warning, just treat it like you are. This is one of those situations where there's wind everywhere. So Kannapolis, pretty much moving in right now. 516. I think we got a live view of Kannapolis. That's a look at the shelf clouds. So you see these shelf clouds quite a bit. These shelf clouds are an indication of strong winds pushing out and interacting with hot, humid air ahead of them. That's the cool rush of air, and it creates this kind of cloud that looks like, if you watch Independence Day, it looks like a mothership landing. That's kind of what it is, because it's pushing the air up and forcing that cloud to form. So that's the wind moving in. Very scary looking cloud. And sometimes they can be harmless, but in this case it's not. That's an indication of a lot of straight line wind damage likely heading. And sometimes that wind is ahead of the rain. That's the other thing to be careful of. The damaging winds can occur ahead of the rain. The lightning occurs way ahead of the rain. Two dangers that people normally will not seek shelter until it starts raining. So you need to seek shelter before it starts raining, long before, because that's when the storm can be the most dangerous. And again, there are some embedded little rotations in there that we're seeing on the radar. So Kannapolis, the storm is on you right now. Concord, 524. Salisbury, around 527. Mount Pleasant, 535. New London, Albemarle, closer to 6 o'clock. And then Uwharrie, the Big Lick area, 610 or so. Norwood, if it keeps moving out towards Stanley County, that's where it would be. So we'll do an update on the warnings. We'll see if this northern warning, they'll let this one expire here coming up. It looks like maybe the one is going to be extended for around China Grove till 5:30, and then we've got the warning to the south, which is the one that includes Mecklenburg and Cabarrus County. That's till 6 o'clock. So this whole line, and then to the south, just a heads up, York County got new warnings moving in from the west. So this whole line is going to impact everybody. It's not just going to miss one section. It's going to affect everybody in our area. One of the things we want you to do if you're in the path of these storms is make sure you're seeking the lowest level of your home, and interior walls and windows are the places you want to be. To give you an idea of where to go, if we peel back the roof there, you see that green room? That could be a bathroom, could be a closet, could be a pantry, could even be a closet underneath the stairs. You want as many walls between you and the outside, and that means the lowest floor, because roofs and ceilings are walls above you. That protects you from flying debris. And in this case today, with straight line winds, the debris is a problem as well. So you need to seek shelter in an interior room away from the outside walls and windows, even during the severe thunderstorms today, because that's the type of wind damage we are seeing, 80-mile-per-hour winds in some of these cells. So let's do a recap. There's a lot of warnings going on. I know the tornado warnings get headlines, but every one of these severe thunderstorm warnings today should have the similar type of heading, where you need to seek shelter in the lowest level of your house, away from the outside walls and windows until this line moves through. So let's go from north to south. Severe thunderstorm warning till 6 o'clock for Iredell, Mecklenburg, Rowan County. Tornado warning for a part of Rowan County around China Grove. Real quickly highlight there is a little bit of a swirl there, right there. Probably just an enhanced area of wind. So go ahead and treat this whole area as if it's basically a tornado warning. I would just go ahead and treat everything like a tornado warning. Further south, severe thunderstorm warnings for all of Cabarrus now, northern Mecklenburg, and a tornado warning on top of that. So again, treat everything like a tornado warning. Severe thunderstorm warnings for Gaston County and York County, both of those until 6 o'clock. And it won't be long before central and southern Mecklenburg County, Lancaster, and Union County get in on these warnings. I don't know what kind of damage reports we're getting in. I haven't had a chance to check. I'm going to glance over here real quickly just to see some of the reports I'm getting in. So we've got, this is from Rowan County Emergency Management. Somebody reported a tornado near Fanny Sloan Road and Mooresville Road. Got to take that with a grain of salt, because sometimes scud clouds or these shelf clouds can be kind of tricky into tornadoes. So hard to tell sometimes if it's just straight line winds or tornado. As we mentioned, it probably doesn't matter in this case. This is over Kannapolis now. That's up at Atrium Ballpark. The wind's coming in there. Look at the sheets of rain, those rain curtains flying across your screen. That's an indication of really strong winds in there. Look how dark it is. You know, it's 5:22 in the afternoon, and it's pitch black there. Again, stay in your shelter location. If you're in a severe thunderstorm warning, do you need to stay in that safe room? I mean, probably not, but in an interior hallway, I mean, I would get away from the outside walls and windows. That was me. You know, I would stay in the middle of the house just because the 80-mile-per-hour winds taking debris towards a window or exterior wall, and you know your home better. If there's trees on one side of the house or big trees somewhere else, maybe go to the opposite side of the house there. That's where I would go. Just had a new severe thunderstorm warning issued for Mecklenburg County. Again, all of Mecklenburg County under a warning now, either severe thunderstorm or tornado. Looks like we're going to see a lot of cancellations of some tornado warnings, but the severe thunderstorm warnings we're going to stay with because of the damaging wind threat. So coming up here, we're probably going to see this warning canceled for Rowan County. That one is going to go away. We'll see what happens in parts of Cabarrus County, because let's go into here. I'm going to zoom in on the winds here. So I know this area right now heading towards the university area. Really strong winds in there. Some of these yellows, 50, 60 mile per hour winds in there. So you're starting to see some really strong winds. That's towards 85, just south of 485. So going on the north side of town. I mean, we're smack dab in the middle of rush hour too. So this is just not a great day to be on the roads, period, in this weather and on top of rush hour. So as I mentioned, if you're listening or watching on any device or stream, if you can just stay where you are until this line, that would be the best thing I can give you, because here's the thing, even if it's not dangerous weather near you, the traffic is going to be a mess because this is backing up traffic everywhere because of visibility and probably debris, limbs, branches on the roads. Just look at the line of storms. There's warnings from Statesville all the way down to Chester. As we loop this a couple of times, you can see the movement of this line pushing off to the east. So I'm going to take a quick look at the power outages, see if they've increased at all. I don't know if KJ is still out there, guys, but if he's able, I'm curious where he's at and what he's seeing. I'm seeing most of the outages to the west. Iredell County is kind of upticked with some outages, now about 3,600. Iredell is up to 2,300, and Catawba County, as I thought, about 11,000 people without power in Catawba County. Caldwell County has about 2,800, Burke has about 1,600, and Avery County about 400. So we're starting to see the numbers go up with power outages in our area, and this is likely due to tree and power line damage. New warnings continue to pop up, but these are severe thunderstorm warnings. And again, remember, today is a day that is kind of a different day. These aren't your typical severe thunderstorm warnings. I want to show you why. Some phones might have been going off today. There's 3 types of severe thunderstorm warnings. You might think they're all the same. They're not. The base one is for 58 mile an hour winds or 1-inch hail. We've seen all considerable severe thunderstorm warnings today, which means 70 mile per hour winds at least. And then we've seen a couple destructive warnings, which means the winds were over 80 miles per hour. When they get to destructive, your phone will actually go off. Wireless emergency alerts are activated on your wireless device. This is not app driven. It doesn't matter what you download. It's your carrier and the cell phone company sending this directly to your phone. You can't override. It's the same way Amber Alerts get to your phone. So when we get to that level of severe thunderstorm warnings, it's severe enough to activate the wireless emergency alerts. And that's because these storms have had such a long history of producing 70 to 80 mile per hour winds. So we'll go back to the radar here as I'm starting to see off the corner here, I don't know where that's from, guys, but some of the damage and wind video we're starting to see. This is Statesville, so this is, wow, kind of shows you how strong those winds are. And that's a classic, what we call a wet microburst, but these aren't microbursts, these are downbursts because it's a larger wind. They're rain loaded, so they're saturated in rain. The combination of the wind, cold air descending near the surface, and the rain on top of that pushes air out in all directions. And the violence of these winds can be anywhere from 60 to as much as 150 miles per hour. I think we take for granted sometimes that these storms can produce this type of damage. We always think it has to be a tornado, but 90 to 95% of all of our wind damage from thunderstorms come from straight line winds. Cherville saw this not too long ago with that very violent downburst, 85 to 90 mile an hour winds causing widespread damage. That's the kind of storms we're seeing today. Now, is that wind in every storm? No, but there's pockets of very strong wind. And in those winds, we're starting to see these little rotation spin up. I'm looking at this right around the university area. New warning popped up there. We'll look at some of these wind speeds. So some of these wind speeds are really starting to pick up around the university area, towards PNC Amphitheater area, and then Harrisburg, not too far from Concord Mills and the Speedway there. We'll widen it out and show you all the new warnings coming out. That is a huge warning. That warning takes up from Greensboro to Winston-Salem down to Albemarle. And that orange outline means there could be tornadoes in that severe thunderstorm warning. Remember, severe thunderstorms by definition can and do produce tornadoes with little or no warning. If you're under a severe thunderstorm warning, there is a chance of a tornado oftentimes. So you need to go ahead and seek shelter from those. Severe thunderstorm warnings should be taken as seriously as tornado warnings in some cases. At the very least, you should never be outside. You should not be in a temporary structure, a tent, a stage, outdoors at all. You should be in some type of sheltered location to protect yourself from lightning, wind, and hail. And then in the rare cases like we're seeing today, sometimes a quick spin up tornado. So again, there's 2 tornado warnings in effect, but then the one in Rowan County, pretty much there's no signs of circulation. The one around Harrisburg, there's not much sign of rotation. These have all become what we call outflow dominant, which means the winds, the straight line winds, are beginning to dominate. And what you're seeing is very strong winds. Those reds and yellows and oranges are winds pushing out from these storms. And again, the wind speeds we're seeing are between 65 and 75 miles per hour. That is plenty to cause significant damage, especially to power lines, trees, and structures. Roofs, shingles, those type of things could be damaged pretty quickly. I believe we got a quick update on the power outages there, guys. I can't see the exact outages, but it does look like they're starting to really go up, especially north and west of Charlotte. Yeah, pretty significant amount of outages now popping up. Yeah, I'm just refreshed my page. So Catawba County now is up to almost 20,000 people without power. And as you mentioned, Iredell County, that's over 16. So just between those 2 counties, you've got almost 40,000 people without power, 6,000 in Lincoln County, Cleveland County now checking in with 4,000. Pretty significant outages here. That's a sign of how much damage is being done to the power grid, which means in most cases, this is basically trees going into power lines. So I'm looking at some updates here. Iredell County Emergency Manager now reporting a possible tornado did touch down near Mooresville. Multiple trees down, in a couple lightning strikes to structures and structure fires in the Mooresville area. So on top of that, the lightning seems to be, the number of lightning strikes is, I turned it off briefly because it's hard to see. I mean, just so you know what that lightning is, there's no warning criteria for lightning. So, just so people at home know, for severe thunderstorm warnings, the loudness of the thunder, the amount of lightning is not a criteria for severe thunderstorms. It probably should be, but it isn't. But just to show you how much lightning is out there, I can quickly kind of tally the lightning strikes here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to turn the lightning counter on, and I'm just going to draw a box over these lightning strikes, okay? 719, almost feels like 7,000. 719 lightning strikes in 15 minutes. That's not a half hour, an hour. That's 15 minutes worth of lightning data. So kind of shows you just how much lightning is there, and that is definitely causing issues in Mooresville with some structure fires. Possible tornado did touch down in Mooresville, at least from the emergency manager, and some of the spotter reports up in that area as I'm looking. Starting to get a lot of trees down in Mecklenburg County now, northern part of the county. Numerous tree reports coming in. So I just got one in from Huntersville right there, and we're starting to see more come in. So 3-4 of them, looks like 2700 block of Hart Road, 6300 block of Pensford Drive. I believe those are all North Charlotte. Those are all coming in from North Charlotte. So that's the Huntersville area. So we've got this Chevy Storm Tracker up there, and you can see the radar there on the screen as we track these storms moving in. I'm going to actually build this up again. Hold on. There we go. So let me widen this out. We'll show one more time. So I want to show you the whole line, because if it's not storming where you are now, ahead of this line, it's coming your way. If you're behind this line, this is the good news. You're all clear from severe on the backside of this line. It's the leading edge and the line itself. And again, we thought it'd be in Charlotte between 5 and 7, and here we are at 5:30, and it's entering Mecklenburg County. So maybe a little quicker, but kind of in our same time frame. Tornado warning still in effect till 6 o'clock, but they whittled it down. And again, now we're just tracking the severe winds. I mean, this is, I don't know what happened in Uptown, but just to look at this line here, I'm going to draw a couple things on here. You see this, to me, I know what you guys at home probably don't see what I'm seeing, but this is the velocity data. So that's the gust front. That's the rush of air coming out of these. And again, that wind is probably between 65 and 70 miles per hour. That wind is going to cause damage. And the reason I say it's going to cause damage, I've got confirmation. I've got all these reports of trees and power lines down. And when you look at the outage map, it's like everywhere behind this line is just a ton of power outages, just a tremendous amount of outages coming in. The entire state of North Carolina right now, there's just under 74,000 people without power. And that's all from the southwest and west section of the state as this line moved in. So as it's now entering Metro Charlotte, which is a high density population area with a lot of trees and power lines, I would expect more in the way of outages. So we'll go into Uptown. And one of the things I was talking about earlier is the strongest winds are actually right here. They're ahead of some of the storms. So even though it's raining back here, the strongest winds are probably about 10 or 15 minutes ahead of the rain. So, you know, everyone has radar on their phone. The problem is people track where the rain is. They're not tracking where the wind is. And the wind is often way ahead of the rain. And you have to look at the velocity data or know what you're looking at. And also the lightning threat is way ahead of the rain as well. So the most dangerous time for a storm is before it arrives, because that's when the strongest winds and the lightning can occur. So the Ballantine camera, we're looking back north. Is that right, James? Yeah, so we're looking back. So look at, that's another shelf cloud, that lowering there. That's indication, that's that gust front. So there may not be any rain in that cloud, but that is the leading edge of the rush of cool, windy weather, and that's enough to blow things down. So don't be surprised as that line hits you, you start seeing the wind really pick up. So we've had, you know, a lot of outages out there as these have moved through the foothills, and somebody who's been out in it has been our meteorologist, KJ Jacobs. He's in the Chevy Storm Tracker. And KJ, I know you've kind of been all over the place trying to stay along and head of this line. Where are you at and what have you seen so far?
Brad, right now we're on 150 headed towards Mooresville right now. So we were on 321, and as we are moving into that storm that was severe, over into parts of Lincoln County and also where we do have some of those outages and some of those down trees in Catawba County, that's where we saw the leading edge with that shelf cloud, and then that storm intensified as it moved towards I-77 towards Mooresville, and that's where we had those 2 tornado warnings. Now I want to switch it over right now. You can see from the dash camera, the rain has let up here on 150, on this side of 150. So we're still a good 40 minutes from Mooresville, and that's where we do have reports of people trapped in their homes due to some downed trees. In addition to that, we do have numerous reports coming in from the storm that hit that area, and there have been some indication of that tornado that did touch down near Mooresville. So we're going to head over in that direction right now just to get an idea of what actually happened there, and put some eyes on the ground and have that report coming up very soon. But right now we're on 150. The rain is much lighter, but at one point when we were in the thick of it moves towards Mooresville, sheets of rain blowing across the road. We did have some of those strong wind gusts, similar to what you were talking about during that very time. But right now we are headed towards 150.
Talking about, as I'm looking at some of the same reports coming in, trees on a house with a collapse on 129 Shining Armor Court, that's in Mooresville. So we're getting a lot of reports, guys, in the Mooresville area. It looks like significant damage. Whether it was a tornado or not, probably not going to matter. We had 80-mile-per-hour winds there anyways. But I think the combination of the straight line winds, possible tornado, and then lightning strikes on top of that, it looks like it caused quite a bit of damage in the Mooresville area. And I know the power outages, I keep refreshing my screen over here, they keep going up and up.
Indeed. Yeah, Brad, I think it was just a few minutes ago you said that we had about 75,000. Now refreshing here this Duke Energy outage map, we're seeing the tally going up to about 86,000 people in, we'd say, probably the Charlotte area, but also including some parts of South Carolina where we have some folks who are without power. Probably about 60,000 of those folks are going to be in the metro Charlotte area. And as we kind of dive into a deeper breakdown of those power outages, we are seeing perhaps a lion's share of those outages maybe in Iredell. Catawba seems to be jumping out a lot. We do have about 1,500 reported in Mack, 3,300 in Lincoln. And, you know, what's interesting to me is it wasn't too long ago you mentioned some delays reported on I-40, I believe it was, Brad?
Yeah.
Well, Conover Fire Department has actually reported right around that time that you noticed the backups, power lines down along I-40 with a grass fire reported. So I wonder if that has something to do with the delays you were seeing on the traffic maps.
Yeah, and that's what you always worry about because you get one tree or something to come down on the interstate, and then and that's really a dangerous situation because if you're stuck on the interstate and you can't get off, then you can't seek shelter from the storm. And like I mentioned, being in your car is probably the worst place to be, but you've been in those situations. There's a barrier, there's nowhere to go. So what do you do? So I really, that's what you always fear in these situations, that rush hour traffic, something happens to block traffic and everybody gets stuck in their car when a severe storm is approaching. But remember, if you're ever in that situation, I know there may be people in their car, maybe they're stuck and listening or watching on their phone, but don't ever go under the underpass. I mean, that's what people want to do. They want to go under there and seek shelter. The problem is that's a wind tunnel effect. The wind will pick up in there, and then you also block other traffic, which causes additional issues. So I know that's a huge problem on some of our interstates. People go there to seek shelter, especially when there's hail or they're trying to seek shelter from heavy rain. Just not a good idea. Better to go slow and then pull over somewhere else or try to get to an exit and get to a shelter location.
Yeah, Colin, I know you're checking in on some of the damage reports too.
Yeah, Brad, you were alluding to the fact that as this passes through Mecklenburg County, some of the damage reports will start indicating what we're seeing. The only thing that we're seeing right now is a wind damage report in Huntersville right now in relation to this storm. So definitely don't take your guard down, as you were saying a little bit earlier, as well as this storm rolls through the area here.
Yeah, seeing some reports, you know, just keeping it here with Conover Fire because they've been pretty busy reporting tree on fire, tree and power lines down, trees on homes. So definitely seeing some impacts from the storm. A lot of you are reaching out to us with what you're seeing in your neighborhoods as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to do that and letting your neighbors know as well the vantage points that you have. We are seeing some of the pictures coming in from our viewers right now. Obviously, as you could see here, awe-inspiring looks when you just kind of look at the clouds, but also, as we mentioned, certainly some damage reported too. So please be careful, folks, as you head out. Maybe take those pictures and videos. We always want you to be safe first and foremost before you send them to us. As you can see, a lot of folks tagging Brad, but don't forget we have the Near Me feature, Colin.
We do, and that is inside the WCNC mobile app, which is free to download. Something to be aware of. Huntersville Fire just tweeting that obviously they are responding. They are very busy at this point. They're saying there are numerous weather calls in the area, fire alarms, power line issues, trees down, etc. So obviously don't inundate them with calls if you don't have to. But obviously Huntersville Fire saying that they are just inundated with people that they are trying to get to at this moment.
Something to remind folks as well, you know, as we think about the emergency situations, if folks are going to be heading outside, which of course we would caution you not to do that, but we talked about the down power lines. We always want to treat those as if those are live lines. You don't know if there is, you know, electricity running through those. Yeah. And I'm sure, Brad, you've probably heard really horrible stories about how that can...
people think you could drive over in the car and like it's going to be fine. Don't drive over in the car. You know, when it's raining like this too, remember that line's hitting like a puddle or water and you're standing in that water too. It just makes the electricity travel. And trees also, if it's touching a tree and you touch the tree, that's touching that. So, you know, electricity is going to find the easiest path, and sometimes that's through a branch, a fence, through a puddle. These pictures were getting a lot of what we call shelf clouds, and you've probably heard me refer to these ominous looking clouds. Typically, you know, in a summer storm, these aren't all that big of a deal. But today, that's the leading edge of the strong damaging winds. And the number of tree and power line outages we're getting is pretty stunning. That tells me this is significant wind damage we're seeing in our area. And this was kind of the fear going into today was, you know, this wind setup was so tremendous. And you know, I think sometimes we think, oh, we always get summer storms, but today was a rare event where we had strong wind energy coupled with really hot, humid air. Typically, those don't overlap. You know, when they do overlap, it's in the spring, right? And that's typically, but even in the spring, it's not as hot and humid as it is now. I always say some of the worst severe weather is in the winter. If you get hot, humid air in the winter with the strong jet stream, you get severe weather. But this was a combination in summer, heat and humidity, which is the fuel. So think of the gasoline for the engine. Typically, we don't have a really big engine to stick it in, but today, that strong wind, we had a jet streak over us today, which is really strong wind energy that was able to get tapped into, and that wind energy was transported down to the surface. And so what you normally would see up at the jet stream winds came down to the ground and produced damage like we're seeing today, 60, 70, and in some cases, I saw in Catawba County in particular, a big swath of 80-mile-per-hour winds very close to the ground. So
you were saying about power lines. Duke actually just tweeted that if you do see a fallen power line or safety hazard involving their equipment, at least you can call them at 800-769-3766. I did talk to Duke Energy prior to us getting onto the air, and they say that they were beefing up crews, especially in the northern area, as they were seeing these storms roll through. This is going to continue for them throughout the night. They have crews staged throughout the area to make sure that people can get power back as soon as possible.
Yeah, and you know, you can see this live look over Uptown. You can see that rain has really moved in. I believe it was the top of the hour when we took the live look of Uptown. All we saw was dark clouds, but it looked largely clear along the city skyline. And now we could see that active rain falling, and the visibility has dropped greatly, at least from this view camera shot. If we take a look at some of the roadways around that Uptown area, we could see a lot of red on that map. Those majors are really slowing down. And of course, Brad has pointed this out. It is rush hour.
Yeah, it looks like 77 stopped too through the camera on the Freedom Boat Club again, although that camera looks much clearer than it did even 10 minutes ago. But there's a slowdown in that area. So just something to be aware of as kind of as you're talking about this right now.
Yeah, guys, I don't want to interrupt you, but we do have a new tornado warning. Now, this is the same storm that was in Mecklenburg and Cabarrus. The new warning has just been extended to the east for Stanley County and a small section of Montgomery County as well. I'll be honest with you, looking at the radar, it's hard to tell if there's circulation there, but it doesn't matter because there's 80-mile-per-hour winds. I think I've said this several times today. This is a day where severe thunderstorm warnings are as dangerous as tornado warnings because of the dangerous wind. And we're seeing the evidence of this, of trees on houses, power lines coming down. So regardless of it's a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning today, I want you to seek shelter. Now, go to the middle of your house, the lowest level, most interior room. If you're not under a tornado warning, you don't have to get the helmet on and get in that room, but maybe get in the hallway. Just get away from the outside walls and windows because you know your house better than anyone. Are there trees on one side that are tall? Maybe you want to get towards the other side or away from those. Because the thing I worry about is trees coming down on homes. That's the biggest concern you have in a situation like this. What makes wind dangerous is what the wind picks up and throws at you. So loose items that are pretty much normal, like a trampoline per se, or a grill or lawn furniture, becomes airborne. It can break a window. It can get impaled into the side of the house. I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff that gets flown in the air. That's what becomes dangerous, as those things get picked up.
And there's now 15,000 people without power in Mecklenburg County, so that's jumped up in the last 5 minutes as you were talking here, Brad.
Yeah, I think it's this whole line. You said Duke Power was on standby and they were mobilizing more people.
Yes.
Remember, this line is going to move all the way across the state. So while the damage is occurring in our area now, it's only going to extend to the east. So as it moves through Charlotte, now Charlotte is the biggest metropolitan area in the state, but it's moving through Greensboro, Winston-Salem. Eventually it's going to head out towards Raleigh-Durham and areas down towards Fayetteville. So this will make it all the way to the coast. And the view you're seeing below me on the screen, that's Uptown. Look at the wind and the rain howling up there. at the view. That's the wind moving into uptown. So imagine, that across the entire area. The tornado warning, again, is for Montgomery and Stanley County till 6:30. If I show you the velocity data, I can show you that. It's really hard to say where the circulation is. When you look at this map, all I see is straight line winds, but I'm seeing very strong straight line winds. So those bright yellows, those are winds, going away from the radar. So look how strong these winds are. This whole line, 50, 60, almost 70 mile per hour winds moving towards Big Lick. So that's the southern section of Cabarrus County, northern Union County, north of Unionville. Unionville, heads up, that's heading towards your way. New Salem and Big Lick. That little surge of wind there, to me, that's the type of wind that's going to bring trees and power lines down. So what I'm going to do is go in on those areas where I see that strong wind, and it's right there near Midland, pushing off towards the east. Let me track that, because that is the part of the storm that has been the most dangerous today. So let me move it right there. Okay, we'll move let me grab this real quickly, put that up there. All right, that was a bad track. Let me do that again for you. Try to get a little precise here. But remember, when you see these tracks, you might be watching me on a stream or on cable or satellite. Remember, there's a delay. So make sure you're paying attention to the current time at your location and when you're seeing this. If it's a 30-second, 1-minute delay, we've all seen, if you watch live sports, there's a delay when you're watching some events. Same thing is happening when you're watching the streaming of severe weather. So give yourself a buffer. Maybe go 5 minutes sooner than this time you're seeing on the screen to shelter. Unionville, 5:49. New Salem, 5:54. Watson, 5:57. Norwood, 6 o'clock. And then Mount Gilead, around 6:20. So again, regardless of if that's a tornado or not, you need to seek shelter, because that is strong wind that will cause damage to your home or bring down trees or power lines. So I mentioned earlier, every county would be under a warning. We've only got 2 more counties left. Every single county in our viewing area has been under a warning today. And I would expect the whole line to continue to see warnings as it pushes off to the east. We're continuing to see new warnings issued as well to the south. I keep refreshing too, the power outage numbers just keep jumping like crazy in our area. So again, Duke Power would tell you this. We just told you this. Vanessa mentioned it. If there's power lines down, please stay away from them. Duke Power will get out there. They will take care of it. If you can, I know some of the 911 services are getting overrun a little bit now. If you have injuries or property damage or something serious, that's the time to call 911. If it's for something minor, try to use the informational lines. I know in Charlotte we have 311. There's other things. Try to keep those lines clear for emergency services for people that have life-threatening or dangerous situations, because fire, people trapped, those are the type of emergencies we need to be ready for.
We definitely have been getting reports of folks being trapped. I know, Colin, you just saw a report from Charlotte Fire. Yeah,
there's 2 within the last 5 minutes. One of them, there's a tree down in a mobile home on Aberdale Farm Lane, that is, and then the second one, a large tree down on a structure on the 3400 block of Studbury Road. So even in Charlotte, we're seeing fire crews inundated with calls already.
I mean, the good news is with the mobile home incident, it looks like Charlotte Fire said that they were able to get the folks out and they are okay, but they did have to assist. And I think that does call attention to, the situation with mobile homes during severe weather like this. Mm-hmm. And I know Brad was mentioning it. It does seem like this is moving pretty quickly through the area, but we are giving folks heads up. Yeah. And enough time, if you are in a mobile home, to maybe get to somewhere that's going to be a little bit safer.
I had that question this morning when I started posting about the severe weather, and people said I lived in a mobile home. What should I do? I said, here's the thing: we'll have time for you to get in your car and drive somewhere more sturdy. So if you do, if you know how to get to like maybe the local gas station or the Walmart or the Target. How long does it take you to get there? If you get the warning in time, you can get in your car and get there. I would recommend that, even for straight line winds like today, because unfortunately, modular homes, mobile homes, they're easy to move. For humans, they're even easier for Mother Nature to move. So just be very cautious. If you're in that type of situation, go ahead and get in your car and get to a sturdy structure, because you don't have to stay there very long. This line's moving pretty quickly. It's moving 45 to 50 miles per hour. So if you just go there, wait the storm out, then you could go back home, you'll be okay. So it's totally worth it. And I agree, Vanessa, if you can get your car, got time to go to a shelter location, that's always the best thing to do.
And the FAA did say a little bit earlier, and we kind of talked about this, rerouting flights. This kind of gets into this. 490 delays here at Charlotte Douglas. here in Charlotte and 85 cancellations. So they're talking about not just Charlotte, Atlanta, New York, Philadelphia, and even DC. So a lot of flights being impacted today.
Yeah, and I feel like Brad has had some really great insight over the years when it comes to some of these flight cancellations and delays, and how things perhaps have changed a bit when it comes to aviation safety and storms.
Yeah, these winds are so dangerous right now that planes aren't going to go anywhere near these storms. So that means all flights in and out are going to be delayed. But also think about the ground crews at the airport. When there's lightning at Charlotte Douglas International, nobody's fueling a plane, nobody's loading a plane, nobody's cleaning a plane, and nobody's out there, you know, the baggage handlers, because they're out exposed on the tarmac because of lightning issues. So think about that. If that's not happening, then a plane's not moving. So that's why delays in the summer, if you ever wonder why travel in the summer is so difficult for airline travel, it's because of thunderstorms. It takes one storm over the wrong airport at the wrong time, and the trickle-down impact is tremendous, because that flight crew was supposed to be on another flight in another city. Now it's delayed. So it's a trickle-down effect. And so this time of year is tough. And right now, that over the airport, complete ground stop. We've got a severe thunderstorm over the airport, so nothing is moving. And we already had delays, as you guys mentioned, from other airports today. So it's not like we're just the only airport here. Remember, this system extends up into the Northeast, the DC area, Baltimore, Philly, New York. So all of the U.S. air hubs are being impacted heavily by this. And again, we've got several severe thunderstorm warnings. And again, I know the tornado warning sticks out, but here's the deal. As I mentioned, this whole line is producing damaging winds. You need to treat as every one of these as might as well be purple and be a tornado warning. So let me do a track on the whole line, because that's probably the best thing to do. I'm going to track this off to the east. I've got it moving at 40. It might be a little bit faster than that now, but this will give you an idea of the time of arrival. So Rock Hill coming up here at around any minute now. Asheboro 6:10, Monroe 6:25, Pinehurst around 6:53, Wadesboro 7 o'clock, Raleigh Durham area, you could see it heading there towards 7:50 to 8 o'clock. And here at the studio, man, we are getting clobbered. I can hear the thunder and lightning outside rattling in the station. So I can tell you there is a lot of cloud to ground lightning. Another safety tip, remember, if you're inside, which is where we want you to be, don't use the sink, don't get in the shower, the tub, don't use anything that's attached to a socket in the wall, because if the power lines or the water line gets hit by lightning, the same way the water and electricity gets in your house is the same way the lightning does. So stay away from those until these electrical storms kind of move out, because the lightning can actually get you inside your house the same way those wires and plumbing gets into your house. So just be careful of that.
Donald, folks who have maybe been around on this planet for a little bit longer remember the years of being on the phone with someone and, I got to hang up onto the landline because it's storming.
Well, I was old enough, you know, our gaming consoles had cords.
Yeah, well.
I remember my mom telling me you can't use it when you're playing, when in thunderstorm, because it was attached to the console and it plugged in. Now with wireless controllers, you're okay. If you have wireless devices, that's great. Cell phones are great because everything's wireless. But yeah, Vanessa, the corded phone was always a bad thing, because you know the telephone pole gets hit outside your house and that thing's up to your ear. That sound's not the only thing coming into there.
Yeah.
You're going to get a shock. So that's why we want you to be safe. The damage report, guys, just to give you a heads up, I'm seeing widespread damage in southern Iredell County and northern Mecklenburg. That cell that had the first tornado warning looks like it did something. It produced a lot of damage. And so I'm starting to see those trickle in, and it looks like some significant damage.
Power lines.
In those areas. Yeah,
trees down. And that's kind of what we were talking about earlier about, you know, Charlotte Fire is already out there. The outage map looks about the same, 15,880 people without power in Mecklenburg County. It has gone up slightly in Iredell. It's to almost 17,000. We do have meteorologist KJ Jacobs, who is in our Chevy Storm Tracker at this moment. KJ, where are you at, and what type of conditions are around you guys at this hour?
Colin, right now we are in the Chevy Storm Tracker right on Highway 150, and we're at a standstill. I just want to show you that traffic is not moving, and looking at some road reports right now, it does show that this road is closed. And just to give you an indication of where we are on 150, we're next to the steam plant, the Marshall Steam Station. So trying to get over Lake Norman to get to Mooresville, where we have some reports of numerous damage that occurred from that possible tornado. Regardless, like Brad said, if it did touch down or not, we do have some wind damage in that area, so we're trying to get there to bring that report to you live. Meanwhile, we are stuck in traffic, and just to give you an indication of what's behind us, take a look here. This is from our roof cam on the Chevy Storm Tracker, and notice that traffic is extended back for miles. And just taking a look at the map, I am seeing that no one is moving at a standstill, and this storm hit us at rush hour. So hopefully everyone made it to their destination or made it to a safe shelter. But I want to run through some of these reports that we are getting in right now, as we were in the heaviest part of that line when it pushed through Lincoln County as well as into Catawba County. So we do have, in Lincoln County, we have some 20 to 25 trees that are down. The fire department, they're trying to work and get those trees cleaned up. In addition to that, there are some 2,500 residents without power. So right now I want to report that 150 is now closed, so you may want to find an alternate route to get home. And as I look at the map here, it looks like if you are in this traffic and listening to me on your app, you can take Sheriff's Ford Road, and that'll take you around the lake back up towards Troutman, and then that'll bring you back down towards Statesville Highway. So reporting here in the Chevy Storm Tracker, I'll send it back to you, Colin, in the studio.
All right, KJ, thank you so much for that report. Here we are approaching the top of the hour. We wanted to catch you up to speed on what we know. We are dealing with a tornado warning for Stanley and Montgomery counties. We have a handful of thunderstorm warnings we've been seeing throughout the afternoon, and we've got some damage reports coming in pretty strong. Trees down, power outage, a whole lot of power outage reports that we're seeing across the area.
Yes, severe thunderstorm warnings at play, even though we had those tornado warnings too. So we'll update you with the power outages that we're seeing. Right down Mecklenburg County, still around the 16,000 mark with people without power in Mecklenburg County. We do have in Iredell County almost 17,000 people without power there. Catawba County, almost 14,000, as that storm did roll through a little bit earlier, and now it's getting into the heart of Mecklenburg County. You were talking about some of those damage reports, and KJ alluded to some of those too. Trees down on houses, power lines down as well. So be aware as you are headed out. There could be some places that you're not expecting to have an issue with, and there are some issues out there.
Yeah, we had mentioned folks, are dealing with a commute at this point too. So that is certainly a factor that we are seeing on the roadways. A lot of red reported. We are seeing a lot of crashes reported. Even at one point we did see Conover Fire saying that there were power lines down across highway, or rather Interstate 40.
That's right.
And there was a grass fire.
Yep.
And we did see some backups from that. Look at this live look. Uptown Charlotte dealing with some very poor visibility as that rain is coming down pretty strong. So yes, please hunker down.
Yeah.
If you can. You don't want to be driving around in this for sure.
Absolutely.
And if you have power lines down in your area, you don't want to accidentally come across those either. Brad has reminded us, please don't drive over them.
Exactly. Yeah, let's get over to Meteorologist Brad Panovich, who is tracking this and ongoing tornado warnings that have been extended for us here, Brad.
Yeah, the tornado warning, obviously there's one out there. It kind of sticks out, Montgomery and Stanley County. But honestly, every warning out there should be taken as seriously as a tornado warning, because the amount of wind damage I'm seeing coming in, I'm just looking at the storm reports. The number of trees and power lines down now in Mecklenburg County is probably in the 30 to 40 range. It continues to go up. We're seeing a lot of damage to homes as well. So 7 reports of trees on homes just in Mecklenburg County, 2 of them on cars. So that's Charlotte Fire and EMS, they're reporting that right now. So we're starting to see a lot of damage in and around Mecklenburg County, but it's just not Mecklenburg County, it's the whole area, folks. You see this line pushing off to the east. Every single county will be under a warning at some point, whether it's a severe thunderstorm warning or tornado warning. It doesn't matter because the damage is happening either way. Wind is wind, as we like to say. And in this case, we're learning that lesson today because the strong winds are causing damage. So there's a quick track, just to give an idea. Lancaster around 6:14, Southern Pines 6:30, Fayetteville closer to 7 o'clock. So that's pushing east. Let me go in closer to kind of show you some of the areas closer in here of where these storms are going. I've been tracking it from Albemarle, where the storm is pretty much over you right now, Monroe and Unionville, and then back towards Chester and Indian Land. So there's Unionville pretty much on you right now. New Salem, 607, Fort Lawn, 620, Wingate, 625, Great Falls, 630, Wadesboro, Polkton area right around 645 maybe or so, and then Kershaw around 703. So this storm is really, really producing a lot of wind. So the camera you see below me is the Matthews camera, or is that Matthews? So that's Matthews. I'm just looking at it on the screen as you guys are, and you can see the wind and the rain there. It's really coming down there as the storm has just made it to the southern part of the county. But what's been interesting about these storms today, the winds have been way ahead of the rain. So by the time the rain gets to you, you've already been impacted by some strong winds. Seeing a lot of damage reports coming in. I'm just filtering. There's only so many. I haven't seen a day like this in a while. Up in Alexander County, a good friend Chris Brown up there at the fire department just told me he had some structural damage at the Alexander County Fairgrounds. Rowan County emergency manager just reported trees and power lines down and on a structure there. And then in Concord, we've got reports of a tree through the roof of a home in Concord. Also, we've got a tree through a roof, Ashcake Court in York. So look at all the counties. I mean, that's all across our area. Iredell, Alexander, down to York County, into Union County. So we're getting damage reports everywhere. I can't even keep up with them. I'll try to plot some of them here quickly, but you get the idea. These are the confirmed damage reports, and Mecklenburg County is starting to stick out, but everybody ahead of this line, be prepared for a similar setup. I'm gonna put what we call the LSRs on there. So you can see the path of these storms. I will quickly, and again, these are the confirmed reports so far. Let me put a quick box around these to kind of show you how many we have. That's 49 reports of damage of some kind. Only one of those was hail. 47 were wind damage reports, and 1 injury reported so far. If that's the only good news so far, is I've not seen a lot of reports of injuries yet, but I do get worried when we see the number of trees on homes and cars, because that's when you start to say that's going to impact somebody out there, and that's going to be where we could have injuries. And that's why Charlotte Fire has been very busy. Huntersville Fire, boy, our first responders are very busy right now. So please, if you see one of them driving by, give them plenty of room, get off the road, and please do not clog 911 unless it's an emergency call today.
Yeah, not just, having to respond to damage reports, trees down on homes and whatnot. I mean, I'm sure they're responding to a whole lot of crashes. You can see a lot of our majors are jammed. And of course, this time of day, we would expect to see some of that, primarily 77. We know gets pretty jammed. We have usually some typical delays around 85 heading towards Gastonia. We see those indeed, but we have some additional ones that kind of don't rise to the surface on a normal occasion, but we are seeing those for sure today. 485 looks particularly slow around Mint Hill, and we are seeing down around kind of the airport area, and then 77 kind of around Cornelius, Mooresville. We could see a very big backup that's going to be particularly in that southbound direction. And I mean, to be very transparent, actually had to turn the crash reports off because there were just simply too many. It would have overwhelmed this picture that we're taking right now.
And to go along with this, we're seeing complete ground stops across some of the eastern parts, or the eastern coast, some of the biggest cities, especially in Charlotte here. Some of the delays, they have really gone up. We had over 400 just within the last 10 or 15 minutes. It's gone to 514. 87 cancellations. Brad was talking about some of the ripple effects that we were seeing, and the FAA, they are also monitoring this, trying to reroute flights along some of the biggest cities on the eastern seaboard, DC, Philadelphia, a lot of these airports right now in a complete ground stop.
Yeah, and it usually takes a bit to recover from something like this. So we would, as always, urge folks to be checking their flight status, whether you're heading out or you're supposed to be heading out later tonight or maybe even tomorrow morning.
True.
Just keep an eye on that. Talking about roadway conditions, we always urge folks, if they absolutely have to be out on the roadways, to slow it down, increase that following distance. You have your headlights on in addition to your windshield wipers, because that's all about visibility, not just seeing where you're going, but also other people need to see you.
And I know people ride with their flashers on. I think that's illegal in North Carolina, so just be aware of that. Sometimes that can, let people know that you're in an emergency when potentially you may not be. So it could be kind of confusing if you are on the roadways. If you cannot see, probably the best opportunity might be to stop or to find a place that you could seek shelter. We're seeing the outages updated as well, almost 20,000 in Mecklenburg now. And as we're looking at the radar, Brad, it seems like this storm is in the heart of Mecklenburg County right now.
Yeah, I'm just about to send out a post for people that aren't watching on TV that if you're ahead of this line, I drew those arrows, seek shelter in an interior section of your home until the line passes. You got to treat this whole line of storms like it's got tornadic winds or straight line winds of at least 80 miles per hour. The number of damage reports we're getting and trees on homes, that's the reason why. We're worried about trees coming down on your home. So if you have trees on one side of the house and maybe that's not the side I want to be on, I want to be on the other side, do that. Get away from the windows, the outside walls, because that's where we're worried about. We're seeing a lot of pictures and videos like this. This is a live picture of, I believe, trees down. I'm not sure where this is, guys, but that is a huge tree.
Yeah, we've got a live look right now that we're getting out of Mooresville. And speaking of trees down, that is exactly what we see, Colin.
Yeah, there's not much reported to us right now, but as you can see, police are on the scene. We had seen also that first responders, fire and EMS were going to this scene right now. Could be a potential situation where they're rescuing individuals, but we're having to confirm that information for you. As we've talked about, many counties seeing not only power lines down, but trees on cars and houses, which cause big issues for folks that are inside.
Yeah, hopefully folks, if there are any inside this home, are okay. We know that Charlotte Fire earlier, we reported this was over at Studbury Road due to a large tree down on some sort of structure. It sounds like a house. They were able to determine that there weren't any occupants inside, but there were 2 dogs apparently that firefighters removed. They also did a mobile home rescue where a tree fell down. This was in the area north of Noda.
Yes. So again, in Huntersville Fire Department, they were putting out on Twitter that they are inundated with calls. So obviously call them if you have something pressing, an injury, if you are trapped, need a rescue, that type of situation. But they are seeing a lot of folks call them for not only trees down, power lines down, but as you were noting, crashes as well. There are a lot of issues. So if you don't have to go anywhere, try not to.
Yeah, we're getting this new image here. This is Windsor Park. We're told another tree down on a home. So that will certainly be a situation where there will be some cleanup. It does look like there's going to be some damage to that roof. Hopefully everyone there is okay. Obviously, a lot of this is coming quickly into our newsroom, so we're basically trying to confirm quickly all of the details we can. So if we get more information on this, we'll certainly pass that along. But I mean, everything is just very widespread as far as these damage reports go. And I believe now we're up to about 92,000 or so power outages just in the Charlotte metro area. That's not even counting the rest of the Carolinas.
That's right. And the National Weather Service updating us about the severe thunderstorm warning that still is at play, Brad. So we're seeing this, and not only the tornado warning that still continues for us into the evening hours here.
Yeah, I wanted to give you a quick tour. This is our 6 cameras on our Mr. Sparky Carolina camera network. You can see from varying degrees, there's either storms approaching, having left, or in the midst of storms, like in Ballantyne right now. It is absolutely pouring and the wind is howling. You can see in Monroe and Lylesville, which is out in Anson County, we're starting to see some storms head our way. The damage reports, as you mentioned, in Mecklenburg County are just tremendous right now. Kind of what you expected, though, unfortunately. When you get 80-mile-an-hour winds and it moves into a metropolitan area with as many trees and structures as we have, always very dangerous. So the tornado warning, yeah, there's still a tornado warning out there, but there's not much rotation in there, and it doesn't matter if it's rotation, because look at those winds. You see those bright yellows? This is the concern. It's not rotating wind. It doesn't even matter if it's rotating. It's 60 to 65, 70 mile per hour winds. And remember, I could preach this every day forever, that wind is wind, okay? People always say it had to be a tornado. If you get a 60 or 70 or 80 mile per hour wind, it is going to cause damage. And in some cases, storms like this are much more dangerous than tornadoes, because tornadoes, the average width of a tornado is 50 yards wide. So it causes intense damage over a tiny area. This line is 3 counties wide. So it's going to cause much more widespread damage. So if you see widespread damage, it's not a tornado. It's a strong straight line wind, and that's what we're seeing from this. So we're continuing to see these strong winds push through the area. I want to quickly show you the damage reports, because the damage reports in Mecklenburg County alone are just popping up left and right. So we'll go back to that video in a second. I just want to show you real quick, guys, just Mecklenburg County. So I'm just going to highlight Mecklenburg County. 11 reports of wind damage so far, and that's just the beginning. They're starting to trickle in more and more. So let's go back to the video. We do have video coming in from people in our area. This is from Stanley County. You could see the gust of wind and the rain. Notice it looks like curtains of rain, and look at the debris. So that's what this straight line winds. It's picking things up and throwing them. The leading edge of these storms has picked up trees and limbs and things in people's yards and thrown them into windows and caused a lot of structural damage is going to be from trees into homes. Our beautiful tree canopy is a calling card of Charlotte. We love it, but unfortunately those trees are huge. A lot of their roots have been chopped off by roads and sidewalks, so it makes them very unstable in high winds, and you tend to see them come down, and when they do, they can cut through a house. In this time of year, we're in late summer, they're full of leaves. So the surface area to catch wind is much bigger. Think about a sail. When you have a big area to push on, the tree gets pushed over easier. So when you have full leaf coverage like we do this time of year, you tend to see a lot of tree damage because the forces on that tree are tremendous. And if there's any weakness in the tree at all, you'll see it come down. So in many cases, I bet we'll see a lot of trees literally snapped off. Some will be uprooted, but a lot of these will be snapped off because the wind was that strong today. And then obviously all the above ground power lines in these trees are going to come down as well. So this is power lines down. This is Davidson, sorry about that. So you can see the power lines down and the tree down as well. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. So that's actually leaning on the power lines. And again, that's a real dangerous situation because the power line's down, but that tree could be electrified as well. So you want to stay away from it. This is a situation where you call Duke Power, call the local emergency management office. 911, if you think it's a danger, you can do that, but I would try to stay away from calling 911 unless it's a true emergency, because what we're hearing is they are absolutely swamped with calls responding to so many 911 calls, Vanessa.
Yeah, we are seeing the damage reports. We are seeing the crashes on the roadways. So yes, first responders are no doubt busy at this hour. We are still seeing those backups. And I feel like usually when we check in around the 6 o'clock hour with traffic delays, I mean, it's not going to look like this, basically.
No.
This is much more intense than we are usually seeing this time of evening, particularly slowdowns that we see those on 77 between, I'd say, roughly the uptown area and that Pineville area. So, I mean, just once again, please take it easy if you do have to hit the roadways, but obviously the recommendation is to stay home or sit tight where you are until this line passes through. We're seeing actually now 102,000 power outages reported in the Charlotte metro, and it's certainly, that's the lion's share of what we're seeing reported across the Carolinas on that Duke Energy map.
Yes, and I was speaking to Duke Energy a little bit earlier. They were saying that they were trying to mitigate some of these power outages. They do grid updates and try to beef up the grid as much as they can. They try to prune back trees and anything, just like we saw in that picture when trees are toppling down on power lines. They don't want that, so obviously they're shearing trees back from power lines. This is down trees here in Mooresville, showing you some video that we captured. And again, if you download the WCNC mobile app, there's a Near Me feature that you can give us videos, photos even, that we can put, right over the road there, as you can see. So, and the first report, I think, in York, South Carolina, there's a tree through the roof there.
So this video, guys, just to interrupt you, that's actually in Mooresville where they think the tornado touched down. So
wow. And look at that debris.
Yeah, that is a lot of tree damage. Now, we don't, that was the exact area where the tornado was. There was 80-mile-per-hour winds, but there was probably an enhanced area where it spun up. Just looking at the damage in some of the areas, it does co-locate with where we saw the circulation on radar. So a strong indication that we probably did have a tornado touchdown in Iredell County, just looking at the damage and the radar signature. And that's what you do. That's how you piece these things together. That's what the survey crews will do tomorrow. They'll go out and look at this damage. They'll try to sync it up with the radar and the location, and you can confirm whether it was straight line winds or tornado damage. But there will be a lot of straight line wind damage in there as well, which probably will be just as widespread as the tornado damage.
And having our crews, we have our WCNC Charlotte Weather Team who typically follows along with these National Weather Service crews the day after we get these damage reports as they try to do that investigation on, was this a tornado, was it straight line winds, what was this? And it's very fascinating to see kind of how that investigation works, and they look at the orientation of the trees and how they fell, and it kind of paints the whole picture. And as Brad says, taking a look at the data to that was coming in at the time.
Yeah, and like I said, we're getting our first reports of some of the, as the storm kind of makes its way into South Carolina, what we're seeing on the ground there, Brad. We do have a crew that's heading to 2900 Hanson Drive. There was a tree reported on a house there. So again, there are a lot of calls into not only Charlotte fire, but Huntersville fire, as we pointed out before, and Mooresville police, they've got their hands full as well tonight.
Yeah, it's the good news is, and if there's any good news, this line's moving fairly quickly, and so once you get past the bulk of that line, the conditions improve pretty dramatically. You're seeing the videos from some of these people that are out driving, and it looks nice out there, but there's a lot of damage to survey. So if you can wait it out, that's why I mentioned this is, we waited all day for this to occur, but it was easy to track. The timing was uncanny. 3 to 5 p.m. it moved into the mountains and foothills, and between 5 and what we're coming up at 6:30, 5 to 7, I had it in the Piedmont, and that's exactly where it is. And now 7 to 9 for the Sandhills. So it's moving through. There's like an hour and a half window where you get rough weather and then it's done. So that's easy to work around. If you just seek shelter and stay indoors, cancel your plans for that little window, then you can get back out if there's not more damage. But the warnings keep coming. For now, most of, now I can say Mecklenburg County has been removed from the warning, so that's good news. But our warnings now include Anson, Stanley, Union, Lancaster, York, and Chester. So those are all severe thunderstorm warnings, which go ahead. We want you to treat everything like a tornado warning today because of the damaging winds. The winds in these have been 65 to 75 miles per hour. I'm going to look at the wind speeds just again quickly. And again, the winds that I see, the strongest winds right now are really in northern Union County, northern Anson, and southern Stanley County. So between Big Lick, Unionville, New Salem, Polkton, Ansonville, Norwood, Albemarle, down towards Marshville, these are really strong winds. Those winds you see, and I can actually kind of tally them. Look at those winds. I mean, that's going to cause a lot of damage. And the kind of damage we're going to see from winds like that, we've got video to show you what this looks like. When these winds move through the area, this is Mooresville, I believe, Huntersville, excuse me, same general area, but you see, this is exactly what I was thinking. See how the tree is snapped? Mm-hmm. That tells you how strong that wind is, because that's an abrupt surge of wind. There wasn't enough to push the tree over and uproot it. It was so strong so quickly that it snapped it right at the trunk. And that's kind of what I envisioned looking at the wind speeds. That's an indication of really strong winds when you see it. So this is Catawba County. Now this one was uprooted, so the winds pushed on it for a longer period of time and pushed the whole thing over. But when you see snapped trees, that's a really clear sign of quick, powerful winds, because the force wasn't able to go down to the roots. It happened quickly and it snapped it right there in the middle. I expect we'll see a lot of damage like that across our area today.
What's interesting too, I mean, of course, we're talking a whole lot about the wind. That clearly is the headline with this weather event. But Brad, I've also been seeing a few reports of trees that caught fire, and I'm wondering, I remember you mentioned at one point you had to turn the lightning reports off because there were just simply too many.
The good news is the lightning has tailed off a little bit, but for a while there, we only do 15 minutes of lightning data on our radar. Usually because it doesn't clutter the radar, but today I had to turn it off because we were getting 1,000 every 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot in a very small area. We saw house fires up in Mooresville too because of lightning strikes. So that's the other, the other impact you have, the other thing you have to worry about. Now, RKJ Jacobs, he was in the Chevy Storm Tracker. He was on his way up to the storm in Hickory, but he cut over to Mooresville. There he is. He is in, this is Huntersville, right? So he's up there right now. KJ, can you hear me?
Yes, we're in Catawba County, Brad, and I can hear you. And you can also see that there is a large maple tree that have come down due to likely the strong wind gusts that we've been talking about and tracking with this system. As we were in the Chevy Storm Tracker, we pulled it over because I saw this large tree that has fallen on this car. What you can't see is a Nissan Maxima. It is underneath this large tree. And we do have some homeowners here. The gentleman that lives here, Danny, said he was not at home at the time, but right now you can certainly see there's some damage littered across the yard here. Also the home next door. We went about a quarter mile down the street here, and this is on Long Island Road in Catawba County. And numerous homes have large trees similar to this one down on the ground. Now, the good news is the folks that are here are okay. They were not harmed by this system as it rolled through. As we know, we had a fast-moving severe thunderstorm that rolled through this area, and this is just one of many homes that is continuing to clean up. But the good news is the worst of the storm is over right now. But yeah, the damage is left behind, as you can see it here. So this is going to take some work to get this all cleaned up. But you can just see this tree has been uprooted. You can see it here. And not only is this tree up and out of the ground and tossed over onto this car, but we also have some utility lines down. Now, they do have power here. However, the cable line is down, but they said they are the only ones in the neighborhood that do have power, but the rest of their neighbors are in the dark right now. And of course, we'll continue to keep you up to date on the outages when it comes to what's happening with the storms as they continue to roll through the area. But also, we're going to continue to make our way and look for some other areas that are dealing with some damage reports from this line of severe weather that's continuing to impact the Piedmont. So reporting live right here in Catawba County, I'm meteorologist KJ Jacobs in the Chevy Storm Tracker. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thank you. Thank you there, KJ. Yeah, so we're going back to this video. This is from Mooresville, so there's so much damage. It's almost, you get confused where we are because they all look similar, but this is where the suspected tornado touched down in Mooresville. This is off of Highway 150, and look at that street. That is a lot of damage. Now the question is, like KG just mentioned, do we have cars? Do we have power lines? Do we have homes under those trees? These large trees falling into structures, I think, is going to be where we're going to see a lot of our structure damage. Now, I did see a lot of reports coming from other areas, like up in Alexander County, Taylorsville at the fairgrounds, some structural damage that looked like it was just straight line wind damage to the structure. So that tells me how strong those winds are. I mean, it's impressive to see that much damage in such a short period of time. That tells you the true power of these storms. Now, there's still technically a tornado warning for parts of Stanley County, but it's out of Stanley County. And again, as we mentioned, we're treating all of the severe thunderstorm warnings today like tornado warnings because of the damaging winds. So let me do a quick recap here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the warning off just so it clears the screen a little bit. And I'm going to do a couple of things here. So if you live along or ahead of this line, let me grab my cursor here, right here, anywhere along or to the east of this line, you still have severe weather. You need to be in your shelter location, stay in an interior room away from the outside walls and windows. That area is still under the threat for severe weather. Now, to the west, from this behind where the rain tapers off, and then back here, I'm going to shade this all in white. This is actually going to be the area where we're all clear from severe. So if you're in this area, you're all clear from severe. So I'm going to put that on the screen so people, because here's the thing, some people are listening and some people are watching and you're on a device. It's hard to say, so I'm going to put it on the screen so people that can't hear can see it. So this is what I always like to do in these situations so that people know when it's okay to get out of shelter locations, because we do a great job of trying to give you a heads up, but if you're behind that line, all clear from severe. Just be careful. There's a lot of debris, trees, and power lines down. You're going to want to go ahead and be careful to stay away from those. So there's always threats after the storms. It's the debris, it's the loose nails, glass, those type of things. It's why we often say when you do seek shelter for a tornado, bring a pair of shoes with you, because once you get out of the shelter location, you might be having to walk through debris, and we don't want injuries after the fact. Emergency managers will tell me this all the time. Some of their worst injuries and fatalities and dangers that people happen after the storm: electrocution, fire, carbon monoxide, other cuts and bruises that happen in the cleanup or trying to get out of a situation than the storm itself. So we want you to be careful going out, but you are in the clear behind that line. In fact, Mecklenburg County, while it's still raining, we're out of all warnings in Mecklenburg County currently.
Okay.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, but just to recap, I mean, there's still going to be some cleanup to come. We've got some power outages. We are now up to 108,000 in the Charlotte metro area. And just to kind of illustrate perhaps how inundated these power crews are with these reports, we've yet to see some of the earlier line, where the line was moving through our area. The earlier parts still waiting to see assessments on what caused it, estimated time of restoration. So a lot of things are really up in the air, as Brad mentioned. A lot of debris that could be outside of homes. Please be careful. Treat power lines down as if they were live. So, take all precautions.
Yeah, and Duke was saying even with some of the extensive grid improvements they made this year, those strong winds that we've seen and the wind-blown debris, it's still going to be impacting power lines. They're asking for some patience. Crews are right now out assessing. They are on a lot of the places or the scenes that they're seeing with the power outages being the highest in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, or I guess just under 147,000 it looks like total in the Carolinas. So there's a lot of people without power at the time.
Yeah, and so we'll just remind folks too, you're looking at this map right now. Brad had shown us the folks who are all clear from severe. We are on the precipice of what looks like a tornado warning expiring for Montgomery and Stanley in maybe about 3 minutes. But Brad is saying we see thunderstorm warnings. We're still going to treat those as if they were tornado warnings. These can cause some problems.
Yeah, take it seriously. And we're also seeing the trickle effect at Charlotte Douglas Airport. And we're going to take a shot of the Anson County camera. Man, can barely see anything out there. That's kind of how it was earlier in Catawba County and up around Mooresville here, Brad.
So that camera is in Lowesville, and if you don't know where that is, that's actually east of Wadesboro. So it's on 74 heading towards the PD River as you're going towards Richmond County. I actually pulled it up on the radar. Severe thunderstorm warning for Anson County right now until 6:30, but look at that rain. And I just got a damage report out of Mecklenburg County that's a little concerning. It's one of the first injury reports I've seen. We did get a report. This is right around the South Park Mall area. One injury, a male was injured by a tree falling on a home.
Oh no.
So I'm gonna show you where that is, because that was the one thing I was like, oh man, I hope we can escape with no injuries. But here it is. I'm gonna zoom in on it. So South Park Mall is down towards the west of here, but I will query this one right here, and you can see that's about 2 miles northeast of the South Park Mall, and that happened at 5:40 p.m. That was due to straight line wind damage. So that was one of the first injury reports I've seen, and that was the fear, was that trees falling on homes or cars were going to do most of the damage today. So again, we still have severe thunderstorm warnings in effect for Union County, Lancaster County, Chesterfield, Anson, Stanley, and Richmond County. The tornado warnings are out of our area. It's Montgomery County now, but as Vanessa correctly alluded to, we want you to treat all of the severe thunderstorm warnings today like they're tornado warnings because of that damage, because of those trees that are coming down on homes, on vehicles. So make sure you're inside, and if you're inside, you don't need to necessarily go to that shelter location, the closet or the stairs with the helmet. You can if you want, but I would say just get to the middle of your house, away from the outside walls and windows, in a location where you can be comfortable, because you might have to, these are going to last longer than just a tornado warning, so you're going to have to ride it out for like 30, 40 minutes. And in that location, you can stay away from the falling trees. And remember, if you have a bunch of trees on the east side of your house, and the west side, there's not trees, maybe shade towards that area, because the trees are what we worry about. And being in the lowest level, away from the outside walls, hopefully those walls will block flying and falling debris from getting to you. I can tell you, as Vanessa mentioned too, travel is not ideal right now. Even after the storms move through, there's so much debris and power lines and trees down that a lot of roads are not passable. And then on top of that, it's the end of rush hour. So it's pretty much chaos on the roads out there right now. And if you lived in Charlotte any length of time, just driving in wet weather alone is bad enough. Today's even worse because you got trees and power lines down. So let's recap real quickly here. We're going to stay on past the bottom of the hour because of the severity of this. But Union County, Lancaster County, Anson County, Richmond County, and Chesterfield County. Those are the counties we're concerned about right now. And I want to go into Monroe, because Monroe, right there, that's where we have the severe weather right over you and to the east. I mean, look at these winds. So When I show this to you, you see the top of the screen, we have Doppler winds. One of the great things about Doppler radar, it doesn't just tell us where rain is, it tells us which direction the rain is moving or whatever the radar is bouncing off of, so we can get wind direction and speed. So right now you're seeing those bright yellows. You're probably like, what is that? You don't see that very often on our maps. Let me just show you. Those are wind speeds. Look at those around Wadesboro. 69 mile per hour wind speed right now. This whole area, imagine that. That's an area that's about the size of the entire county, producing 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. The threshold for damaging winds is 58 miles per hour. We know we can get damage below that, but normally we'll get damage to power lines and trees once this number reaches 58. And every one of those places I queried has a 58 mile per hour wind or higher. So that means probably widespread trees and power lines coming down in these areas. So that's why we want you in your shelter location, because unlike a regular thunderstorm, which might just have a little bit of wind, lightning, it's dangerous in and of itself, these are a threshold above that. These are producing widespread destructive winds, which can be just as dangerous. Most of these wind speeds will be classified as a low-end EF0, EF1 tornado, but they'll be straight line winds. So it doesn't matter that it's rotating or going straight. The tree and the power line doesn't care. It just cares that that wind is hitting it.
I mean, it just makes me think about, Brad, it wasn't too long ago we had that day where I believe it was 70+ tornado warnings that we had for our area, but I don't remember seeing as much damage and widespread damage as what we are seeing today.
It's funny you say that, because a lot of times people will tell me, Brad, there was a tornado, there's widespread damage, and I'll go, if it's widespread, it probably wasn't a tornado, because tornadoes are small. While they're very destructive, they take up a very tiny footprint. These storms are taking up the size of whole counties. So that's why you get these widespread damage reports like we're seeing today.
So just under 147,000 people across the Carolinas without power. You can see as we zoom in here a little bit closer how that shapes for folks that are in Mecklenburg County. You got 22,000 people without power. And now as we move into Union County, there's just over 2,600 people without power. But that could go up as this storm continues to move closer here.
Yeah, and just a reminder, I mean, we mentioned this not too long ago either, that it looks like crews are still out actively assessing and trying to get estimates for when this power is going to be restored. And keep in mind, as Brad has mentioned, I mean, this storm is kind of moving across our area. So we did see it earlier in the day up in our northern and western part of our viewing area, and I'm still checking those reports from earlier in the day, and there's still kind of question marks. When will the power be back for those folks?
Well, that's a great question too. Huntersville Fire, they were kind of talking about how they have been swamped with people calling as of 6:20. In the screenshot that they took, they had 14 different areas that they had to assist folks, weather-related issues, whether it be trees, power lines, debris. But as they were talking about, more folks heading out into the roads means more calls are coming in. So if you don't have to go anywhere, obviously this is stretching our EMS authorities a little bit more than obviously in a normal day.
Yeah, so of course, yes, trees down, that's going to be a big factor that we're dealing with. This is the live look over in Catawba County, where it looks like we've got that tree that's been uprooted. As KJ Jacobs, he was out there just a second ago, obviously still out there, but not standing in that shot, was telling us there's a car actually under that tree. It looks like we got some debris also down on top of that home. We've got reports from earlier in the day of trees down on cars, trees down on power lines, trees that caught fire, presumably from lightning strikes, which Brad was saying we did have some pretty prolific lightning at one point.
Yeah.
Live looks here.
Live look at Monroe. Yeah. Kind of as you were talking, I was kind of trying to count in different shots how many lightning strikes we had seen in one shot when it was going over Lake Norman. So about 15 different strikes of lightning in about 15 seconds. So it kind of highlights that.
Yeah. So folks, just be careful. We talk about not wanting to hit the roads, but also maybe just be a little more cautious about going outside of your home at this time. If you're noticing, you're looking out the window, you see, oh, it looks like we got some trees down and such. We don't know if there's going to be live wires, power lines that are going to be down near your area where you might be walking, where we want to treat power lines like they're live. If you see them down, you don't know if there's going to be broken glass or some sort of sharp debris that you might step on and hurt yourself. Just kind of wait for things to marinate just a bit.
Yeah. And we did see an injury report near the South Park Mall. Brad was alluding to that about the widespread damage we're seeing. Brad, we have to be, obviously, we've been weather aware, but this is unusual. We're seeing so much damage like this.
Yeah, in summer setup like this, the only time you ever see damage this widespread in the summer is like a derecho, which is the long-lived wind event. This might have borderline be close to it in a few spots, but typically these form in the Midwest and they move over like a 12-hour period. This was just, almost spring-like thunderstorm setup here in the summer, which is very rare. I can't really emphasize enough. When I was really talking about this on my vlog yesterday and then again today, people are like, oh, it's just pop-up thunderstorms. Like, this is not a normal summer setup. We don't see the jet stream this strong over 90, 95 degree air temperature and dew points in the 70s. That's a combo that doesn't happen. It's a wintertime jet stream with summertime heat and humidity. When those two combine, that's when you get the worst severe weather. Now that happens sometimes in the spring and fall when those seasons cross over. You just don't see it in the summer. Now, the view you're seeing down below me, is that Lowellsville? That's out in Anson County, Lowellsville. So that's that strong storm. You can see how it's flaring out. Can we take that full? Because one of the things I'm noticing about that, that's a rain shaft on the left, but notice the flaring at the bottom. It looks like a bell. That bell, that's the wind pushing out. That's a sign of a downburst. So that means the wind's not coming straight down. It's hitting the ground and it's spreading out. So when you see that flange or that flaring or the bell shape to the rain shaft, that is damaging straight line winds right there. So I'm going to go over the key wall and I'll show you what I'm talking about. And you can see it coming right towards our camera there. This is a rain shaft on the left. You see a little bit of rain on the right as well. And we're going to zoom in on it right now as we go in. So right there, that's truly some downburst winds coming at the camera, I believe. So we're looking back, it looks like back towards Wadesboro, because we're looking west. I can see the sun kind of setting there. But yeah, so what you're looking at is strong winds moving into Anson County. So east of Wadesboro, really strong winds. This is why we want you to stay weather aware and stay in that shelter location. The camera's beginning to shake a little bit as well. So typically what we would see is, the rain shaft comes down, but when it flares out like that, what you're seeing is the wind coming out of the storm, it's with rain, hits the ground and spreads out in all directions. And that spreading out is what creates the wind damage. Sometimes it'll even curl up and people will say that looks like a tornado, but that's just these vortices that are horizontal. You see really strong winds there. So we go back to the radar. I'll show you, this is the view. This is in Anson County. That storm is right there. So that thing is moving right towards them. Wadesboro's there, Lowellsville's there, Richmond County, Rockingham's there, Hamlet, those areas. Charlotte, it's still rainy, but the worst weather's gone. So Union County, southeastern part of the county. So down there towards the Jars area, up there towards Wingate, Marshville, and then heading towards Polkton on 218, 218, the old cut through that you'd use to take to the beach before the bypass, the toll lane there in 74. That's moving in. You see the tornado warnings off to the east. Those are for central North Carolina. So those were the storms that came through Iredell County and caused the damage there. So that same storm that caused damage in Iredell County is still producing tornado warnings near Asheboro and towards Sanford. So again, the arcing of these storms, the way they're pushing out, bowing, that's a real strong indication of strong winds. And look at the winds. I mean, Wadesboro, we're getting out of range of the radar here, but you get the idea how strong the winds are. So I have to switch radar sources here because now we're going to have to use the Raleigh radar to see some of this. So we'll switch over to the Raleigh radar real quickly, see what kind of wind speeds. So we're pretty far from the radar here, but you can still see those strong winds moving into central North Carolina. So it's moving out of the area. As I mentioned, there is a little bit of good news in the speed of these systems. You hate to see this wind, but these aren't going to last long. They're quick hitters. They're in and out fairly quickly. And so if you wait till they pass, the good news is things improve dramatically behind it. My only concern now, and I know you guys mentioned this, is the amount of damage. There's also not threats from severe weather behind it. It's the threats from down power lines, trees. The other thing you worry about when trees get uprooted, gas lines. I've seen gas lines ruptured because the roots will get uprooted and take the gas line with them. So be careful. If you smell that permactin, that scent they put in there, make sure you call Piedmont Natural Gas, maybe call 911 if you smell that gas. There might be a gas leak. Just be very careful. There's probably a lot of hazards that'll be out there. The good news, they're canceling the tornado watch and severe thunderstorm watch behind this line. So as I mentioned, if you can get behind this line, Once it moves through, which is right there, keep grabbing the wrong cursor, west of this line, we're all clear from severe, but to the east, it's still marching. So maybe a couple more counties here, and we should be in the clear, at least in our viewing area, and then it becomes a big issue for central North Carolina. So the severe weather right now, southeastern Lancaster County, Chesterfield County, you haven't even seen a storm yet, but it's heading your way, Anson County and Richmond County. So we're down to about 3.5 counties left. But by the way, now officially every single county in our viewing area has been under a warning today.
I mean, it moves so quickly, like you mentioned too. I had this like picture here of Uptown that I was looking at. We popped it up in our preview monitor, but I just remember it was probably like 30 minutes ago we showed it. It was just whiteout rain conditions, and now it's, I don't want to say clear as day, but I mean, you can definitely see the skyline, you can see the dark clouds, but it just moved so quickly through.
Yeah, it's much different. I was looking at a picture from Lake Norman after about 15 minutes after that storm rolled through, and it's night and day, really. It really was night and day. So updating you on some of the power outages, we're not really seeing too many tick up in Union or in Anson County at this time as the storm kind of rolls through, but it's good that some of our warnings have expired for folks here in the Charlotte area also.
Yeah, we are seeing this updated look at the outage map. Duke Energy showing, we'd say maybe around 108,000 power outages for our general Charlotte area. I mean, obviously, as we hone in on Mecklenburg and specific counties, that number is going to drop. But I mean, I'm not seeing other areas with more outages than what the Charlotte metro area is dealing with right now.
Yeah, certainly don't seem to be ticking up as fast as the other counties that when the storm rolled through. Duke Energy said earlier that they were making sure that their crews were around, not just in Mecklenburg County, but the surrounding counties to try and get to some of these spots as soon as possible. Obviously, they beef up the grid, do other things like changing out poles and switching out lines throughout the year annually. But right now, crews are assessing the damage and trying to return power to the customers that are without it at this hour.
Yeah. So, of course, folks, if you know someone who is, a family member or friend who is not having, electricity come into their home right now, let them
give them a call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're keeping an eye on things. As soon as we get an update on, estimated restoration times, that sort of, we're still waiting for a lot of those.
Yeah.
We're going to have that here on the air for you. We'll remind folks, if you are without power, you can watch us online. We stream. We have a mobile app. By the way, this is a live look over Anson County. So this is kind of, the area we're watching right now, as the storm's moving through.
Yep.
But there are multiple ways that you can get information from us that don't require over-the-air television.
Yeah, WCNC, our mobile app is free. You can also get it online. We've been kind of tracking flights through FlightAware today, and they were over 500 different cancellations and delays today. And it sounds like at Charlotte Douglas, the arrival delays for airborne aircraft on average around 48 minutes, and it seems to be decreasing. They're also saying all inbound flights being held at their origin until 7:15. So we're about 30 minutes from that time right now.
Yeah, that's well after the storms too. That tells you that they have a lot of recovery to do. The reports continue to trickle in from other counties. I just got an update from the York County Emergency Manager. About 30 to 40 trees down in York County alone and multiple power lines down across the county. So that was an area that wasn't even hit as hard as some areas north and still seeing a lot of tree damage. It goes to show you how strong these winds are. And as we look at the loop, you can see it continuing to push east fairly quickly. Here we are coming up at 6:45 in the evening, and the storms are still on their way into Anson and Richmond County. Chesterfield County just now starting to see some of this. So the worst of it is over in Union County and almost over in Lancaster County and definitely in Stanley County. But in Anson, Richmond, and Chesterfield, it's still starting to ramp up. So those three counties, our three eastern counties, the worst is yet to get in there. And once it moves through, it'll be done for the evening. So you still have some strong winds. And just based on the history to the west, you got to be prepared for trees and power lines to come down.
Absolutely. We are hearing, I think it's York County, did you say 2,000? Yeah, 2,000 York County folks without power, and so obviously we'll be watching that as well.
Yes, and we've had KJ Jacobs on the ground, who's been in the Chevy Storm Tracker, obviously giving us a look at what he's seeing. But behind him, if we can take this shot here in a second, a large tree, well, not ready yet, sorry, but he was talking about a large tree that fell on somebody's vehicle, which is not the first report that we've seen, not only near Mooresville, but also Mecklenburg County. We've seen reports of that too.
I think the good news with this particular situation, the specific live look that you're taking there, the right-hand side of your screen, KJ was able to determine that there weren't any injuries reported, which is great to hear. Sadly, we have heard of an injury report in our area. That was the South Park area, and that was after, I believe it was a tree that fell into a home.
I believe you're right. So, so it's good to hear that we don't have many more of those type of reports. Obviously, there could be something that is updated throughout the evening as folks are assessing this and on the ground trying to see what this damage looks like. But from what I can see, there's only almost nearly 100 different entries of storm damage we've seen throughout the area, which is a lot, and that's something that's unusual. We've been talking about that throughout the broadcast tonight, but we don't normally see this.
Yeah, and I want to just say, bear with us, folks. I know you saw KJ pop up briefly on camera there, walking towards the camera. He had a gentleman joining him. I believe he's going to try to get an interview and kind of get a firsthand account of what it was like to experience the storm moving through and the impact. So once again, bear with us. We're going to try to get that information for you and turn that interview around for you in just a bit.
Hats got to go off to all of our police, our fire, our EMS crews that are out there right now. We talked about this again, not just Huntersville Fire, but Charlotte Fire, talking about how swamped they were with people as they were heading out on the roads in the heart of the storm. I mean, it rolled through right during commute time, so it was the worst part of the day really to have a storm roll through, especially a strong storm like this.
Indeed, a lot of crash reports. It does sound like KJ's ready to get us in touch here with, I don't know if this is a neighbor or witness. KJ, who are you with?
Colin and Vanessa, this is Steve Ray, and Steve is the neighbor to his brother. Lives in this home where we have this large tree that has fallen over. Essentially, it's been uprooted. And Steve, tell me what you witnessed as the storm was rolling in.
Well, I was mowing the grass and I saw lightning and thunder back across the way, so I put the lawnmower up and I run across the house, and then I live next door, and so I heard a lot of wind, and I opened up the front door and I could see it coming, the rain, the wind, and then it just got so loud you couldn't even hear anything. And I looked out my back door and I could see that there was some limbs and stuff in the backyard, so I thought, I better not go out. And so I waited about 15-20 minutes and I looked out and I saw all this in the front, so I come running over here. I didn't know if my brother was at home or not, so come over here and I saw the damage to the car and all that.
And when you saw the storm coming, what made this storm different from previous storms that were rolled through this time of year?
It was just, I don't know, it was just so loud, and you couldn't even see, you couldn't even comprehend that it was just rain and wind. It just looked like a mess of debris. I mean, it was horrible. It was unexplainable. I mean,
so essentially, when you saw that coming and the sound you heard and what you saw, you knew that something was going down, that there would be some damage left behind.
Yeah, I looked out my front window and I could see limbs and stuff going by my house, and I don't even have any trees, so I knew they were coming from somewhere. So my brothers had these big trees for years and years, so I knew they were probably coming from there.
And tell me about this car, that it's essentially likely to be a total loss at this point. I mean, you have a large maple tree that has fallen over on it.
Yeah, the whole back's crushed. I mean, the window, the trunk, everything, it's all completely smashed. It's down, it's got the tires flat all the way down to the ground, so it's pretty much done.
Now, even though that car is gone, how do you feel that it didn't hit the house?
It amazes me that my house is over there in the middle. This happened here. This tree is on this side of the house. All those limbs on that side of the house. The whole backyard and the swimming pool is full of limbs. Front porch is full, but the house is still intact. I mean, that's just amazing. And I live in a double wide next door, and it didn't touch it. I mean,
wow.
That's crazy.
And that is crazy.
The neighbor on the other side, he had a tree fall close to his car as well, so, and tore their trampoline up. So, for me to be right in the center, that's just a miracle.
Yes, and I'm so glad that you're okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Despite what happened. And Steve, one thing that we've been talking about when it comes to a straight line wind event, it's not confined to one area. Now, if it was a tornado, it could be just one community, but this is just a prime example that this was a straight line wind event, and we do have widespread tree damage. Steve, I want to thank you so much for speaking to me, and I'm so grateful that your family is okay.
Glad. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a good evening.
And guys, once again, this is just one example of downed trees that are scattered across the area right now. And you can see that this tree was completely uprooted as I back up towards it. I'm 6'1", and you can see this tree, the amount of root that has come out of the ground is about a foot or two taller than I am. And so this is just a prime example of just how powerful those winds have been, and parts of the area are still dealing with this. And we saw this coming, and that's why we encouraged all of you to be weather aware on this Monday. Now, once again, we are here on Long Island Road in eastern Catawba County, and we're seeing numerous reports of downed trees and power lines across the area. Reporting live in Catawba County, I'm meteorologist KJ Jacobs in the Chevy Storm Tracker.
All right, KJ, thank you. Yeah, those damage reports are just coming in everywhere. You know, KJ did a great job explaining how those trees came down there with the straight line wind damage. You could have taken that image and probably replicated it in every county in our viewing area. And speaking of that, we still have warnings now. Every square inch, I'm gonna have to go back and look, but I think every square inch of our viewing area had a severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning today. That is a rare event for us any time of the year, spring, summer, fall, winter. But now I could show you that all of our remaining counties to the southeast, entire counties now under these warnings, including Anson, Richmond, and Chesterfield counties. And again, the leading edge and the main part of this is where the severe weather is. So I will do a quick little storm track here because it's really now all about Chesterfield County and our viewers down there. So East Rockingham, 651, pretty much already moving through there as we speak. You can see Chesterfield, 703, McBee, around 707 down there in McLeod. Peach Farm, great peach farm. Hope the peach crop's doing okay down there. Winds and peaches never do well, so hopefully we don't damage the peach crop down there. Sherall, 719, and then heading out towards Laurinburg around 734. But that's the last of it. If you're on the west side of that line, and I'll go back up and show you, you're all clear from severe. In fact, they started canceling the severe thunderstorm watch and tornado watch. I'll show you. The watch has been updated, so you get the idea. They have whittled it away, so everywhere where you don't see counties filled in, the gray counties, that's severe, clear from severe. Where we still have severe threats, it's where the yellow counties are, and it's almost done there as well. We're starting to see things really begin to clear up across the area, especially areas to the west where we saw severe weather earlier. I did want to show you real quickly what we call LSRs. These are the storm reports. LSR is short for local storm reports. They're still trickling in, but look at the swath of damage. It started back in Avery County, and you can almost see the track of that strong wind threat came straight down like this. So it wasn't a tornado, but it might as well have been as far as the damage is concerned, because the number of reports, pretty astounding. In fact, let me highlight. I'm going to draw a box just to show you. In that area, 82 reports of storm damage, 77 of those were wind damage, 4 reports of high wind gusts, 1 report of hail, and 2 injuries reported in that area. And honestly, we hate to see injuries at all, but 2 injuries in that whole area with that much damage is pretty astounding. We hope we can keep it that way. But remember, there's still a lot of recovery going on, a lot of trees on homes, people trapped, collapsed buildings here and there. We're getting reports of that. So we probably will get more reports that trickle in, especially as fire departments and emergency managers begin to report some of these damage. And there will be a lot of that trickle in after the fact, because let's be honest, a lot of these reports won't come in until the emergency managers and the fire department have a time to take a breath and get done with their work. Then they can report what happened, because they're responding right now to all the devastation out there.
Yeah, I truly get the sense that they're just, trying to get their feet under them after getting all of these reports. I mean, we're now up to 114,000 power outages in the Charlotte metro area, and still waiting to hear in our mountain areas when their power is going to be restored. They were some of the first outages that we saw. Right. So I think they're just trying to get a wrap on just like everything. There's just so much.
Well, and as we commented, in 45 minutes, they got about 25 different calls in different areas. So Julia Kaufman is live at another site where we're seeing a tree down. Julia, where are you?
Hey, Colin, Vanessa. I am on Randstone Court, I'm actually looking at my maps right now because we've been driving around all evening looking at damage. We're in sort of to the east of the South Park area on Randstone Court, where there was reports of an injury after a tree fell on the house. This is that tree. I'm going to walk up next to it so you can see just how massive it is. The neighbor we were speaking with and the homeowner here, they are expected to be okay, and they are saying they're so grateful and feeling so thankful that their injuries were just minor. But police were here when we pulled up, and medic tells us they did respond. Unfortunately, this massive tree fell over into this house, and the woman I spoke with that lives here, she says her husband, he got a gash on his head from the tree falling in. So you can imagine how scary that is. He went to the hospital and is being checked for concussions and anything like that, but they say he is expected to be okay, thank goodness. She had some scrapes on her hands, so obviously really shaken up. Out of nowhere, they said it felt like this massive tree just came crashing down from their neighbor's yard into their house. And like you were saying, it goes to show how this damage can sweep through so quickly from those winds. The neighbor told me this is quite an old tree, but it was healthy to his knowledge. But the wind was just that strong that it knocked it over into someone's house through their roof. So again, lucky to be okay. Just making sure, that there aren't any more serious issues going on. And of course, the property damage they're dealing with is devastating as well. So we've been driving around. We've seen a lot of debris on the roads, a lot of rain in the South Park area, but we were hoping no injuries. Unfortunately, there was one here, but like I said, hoping to be okay, Brad.
So I guess that's the one report of injury we had near the South Park Mall area. That was about 2 miles northeast of South Park. And again, that's the big concern, is the trees on homes, and we're still getting reports of that. The good news is these storms are moving quickly. Richmond County's almost completely out of it now. They're still storming pretty good. Chesterfield County, the last county where we still have the storm to go through, but it's moving so quickly now. I say the speed is probably up to about 50 miles per hour. So the storms are racing to the east. And part of the reason the storms are moving so fast is the same reason they cause damage. One thing you remember, fast-moving storms, if they're moving 50, they're at least producing 50-mile-per-hour winds. And if you have 50-mile-per-hour winds and then on top of the downburst winds coming out of them, you can see why you get 60, 70, in some cases 80-mile-per-hour winds coming out of these storms. So the good news is the worst is over. Chesterfield County is the only county that we still have a threat for severe weather, and that's only going to last maybe 10 or 15 more minutes. We do have some light rain moving back into the metro area in Charlotte, but it is not severe. So again, the cleanup is going to start, but there will be some rain for a little bit here as we go into the evening. Pretty rough day. It's not very often that I get to say every single county in our viewing area was under a warning and see this much widespread damage. Definitely one of the most active severe weather days we've seen in quite some time. And to have it happen in August is pretty rare, guys.
Wild to think about. There's so many calls for service by our crews out there. They're still going to be assessing that damage, so be aware of that as well as you head out this evening.
Yes, don't forget too, you see our crews out there. Our night team has taken over, so we are going to have our crews out and about around the area, checking out some of these reports, making sure folks are okay. We do want to thank everyone who has taken the time to send us footage, pictures, any sort of reports that you're seeing from your neighborhoods. We are seeing some of that on our screen right now. We've got, of course, social media as a way to send us that information. Right. We also have the Near Me feature on our WCNC Charlotte mobile app, so we just appreciate any safely taken pictures and videos that you can send, and we're going to get you updates. We'll get it online, and we'll get it for the news for you at 11 o'clock.
And it's great because that Near Me feature will tell you where you're at. It'll give you a locator, and then it'll tell us part of that story, which helps us to try and keep you safe, you at home. Obviously, we'll have an update at 11 o'clock. We'll have you to Jeopardy here in a couple of minutes, but thanks for joining us here for the news and trying to keep you weather aware.
Stay safe, everyone.
Well, a lot of families getting ready for the start of school. And according to Deloitte, back to school shopping is the second most expensive time of the year for families, trailing just behind the winter holidays.
And that's on top of the National Retail Federation predicting this year's back to school shopping season will be the most expensive ever. Wake Up Charlotte's Sarah French breaks down some apps and some websites to help you save, so you're not left asking, where's the money?
Here are some of the top websites